Chapter 629. What do you agree to? What do you want to assist me with? Wang Kai frowned and asked with a teasing smile. Swoosh. Yu Xian and Hun Luo Tian's faces stiffened. They thought that they could take the opportunity to flatter Lin Fan and live a better life. Who knew that Lin Fan would not fall for it? However, it was not good to lose face in front of so many disciples. Thinking of this, Yu Xian laughed dryly and said, Senior brother, Elder Bei Huan wants to recommend you to be the chief disciple of the outer sect. I think that you are the most suitable. Yes, I think so too. Senior brother, you are skilled in martial arts and your cultivation is unfathomable. You are indeed worthy of being the chief disciple. Hun Luo Tian said with a smile. After saying this, the two of them secretly prayed in their hearts, hoping that Wang Kai would not let them lose face. It was already embarrassing enough to flatter him like this. If they continued, how could they survive in the outer sect? The two of you are wrong. Bencheo's ability is 1,000,000 times more powerful than what you said. Next time, remember to flatter him as high as possible. Do you understand? Two dregs. Wang Kai shrugged and said with a rather indifferent smile. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have gained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Trash. Swoosh. Hearing these words, Yu Xian and Hun Luo Tian were furious. They lowered their heads and their faces turned red. However, they hated Wang Kai to the core. Even if they flattered him like this, it was useless. Instead, they felt that the level of flattery was too low. Many disciples had strange expressions at this moment. They did not expect this new disciple to be so weird. Flattery needed to be of a high level. If they could not do it, they would lose face if they flattered him. Yu Xian and Hun Luo Tian were the best examples. Cough cough, come over. I will leave the A class to you in the future. Elder Bei Huan waved her hand awkwardly. She swore that she had never met a disciple like Wang Kai. His cultivation was clearly superior to that of all of the outer disciples, and even the elders had been defeated by him. Yet, he loved to brag so much. It was truly incomprehensible. Could it be that the strong all liked to brag? I'm sorry, Benchao has never been fond of undeserved fame, and he really doesn't care about those heavenly beads and martial foods. I'm not afraid to let you know that the romantic floor is run by Bencheo's wife. So, haha, you know what I mean. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and said with a proud smile. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to the host for breaking through to the 4th stage of the Heaven Origin stage. The romantic floor was opened by his wife. F***K. These words almost caused the disciples to fall to the ground. Even the North Ring elder's body stiffened. His eyes were filled with helplessness as he shook his head and smiled. It was impossible to stay calm when facing someone like Wang Kai, who loved to brag. According to what he said, didn't that prove that the beautiful lady boss was his wife? Was that possible? Within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles, or even millions of miles, or even further away, there were countless experts from powerful forces who were pursuing the lady boss. However, to this day there had never been a single person who succeeded. Sigh, looking at your inexperienced appearances, I don't think you'll believe me. Never mind, when this young master has time to return to the romantic flower snow moon pavilion, I'll bring my wife here to meet all of you. If you hadn't asked, this young master wouldn't have said anything about such a trivial matter. Wang Kai's eyebrows twitched slightly, and he waved his hand in a rather casual manner. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. His confident look even made many people believe him. It was as if he was telling the truth. Bragging to such an extent, he was indeed invincible. What the young master said is true. At that time, we two brothers followed the young master to the romantic floor and met the young master's wife. Sun Guantian rolled his eyes and hurriedly said loudly, pretending to be serious. Sun Guandi did not want to be outdone. He immediately said in a loud voice, "That's right, we have indeed seen the young master's wife, the owner of the romantic floor. She is a very beautiful and powerful woman." However, the others all showed disdain when they heard that. Wang Kai hadn't joined the sky-reaching church yet. How could he be so stupid to lie and flatter others? They didn't know that Wang Kai was a sucker for this. Well, you two are very tactful. The next time we return to the romantic floor, this young master will order the lady boss to prepare a few more dishes to entertain you. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and said with an indifferent smile on his face, "Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. F***ck. He actually agreed with a clear conscience and even wanted to reward them. Such a scene instantly caused Yu Xian and Hun Luo Tian to secretly grit their teeth. Just now they had clearly tried to flatter him. Furthermore, their flattery was very reasonable. However, they just had to be rebuked. On the contrary, the flattery of Sun Guantian and Hun Luo Tian, who were obviously lying, was accepted. What kind of person was Wang Kai? What they didn't know was that Wang Kai didn't like other people's flattery, but when he bragged, other people believed it to be true. If Yu Xian and Hun Luo Tian knew the truth, they might vomit blood on the spot. All right, this matter is settled. You may all disperse. Elder Bei Huan frowned slightly. She really couldn't stand Wang Kai's bragging. She immediately waved her hand to disperse the disciples and walked quickly to the entrance of the courtyard. She looked like she wanted to leave immediately. Don't participate in the inner sect disciple trial for the time being. Everything still needs to wait for Elder Ju Yun's permission. Elder Gongsuan's brother is the deacon of the inner sect's disciplinary hall. As the North Circle elder left the A class, the message she left behind reverberated in Wang Kai's mind. Inner sect, disciplinary hall, deacon, Elder Gongsuan's brother? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes slightly. No wonder Elder Ju Yun didn't let him participate in the inner sect disciple trial. Instead, he asked him to wait and make a long-term plan. So this was the problem. What are the cultivation bases of the inner sect elders? Wang Kai asked casually as he waved the folding fan in his hand. Sun Guantian and Sun Guandi looked at each other and shook their heads. This we don't know, but, Wang Kai raised his eyebrows. But the weakest inner sect disciples are at the sky origin stage. I heard that there are also heavenly king stage disciples. Sun Guantian said with a frown. The sky origin stage was the weakest. There were even heavenly king stage disciples. In that case, no matter how weak the elders were, they wouldn't be weaker than heavenly kings. Then, what about deacons? How strong were they? Chapter 630. Just be as strong as you want. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and simply stopped thinking about it. As the saying goes, counter soldiers with arms, water with an earth weir. If they were enemies, he would just kill them. You too should quickly improve your cultivation and strive to reach the peak of the heaven general realm as soon as possible. At that time, Benshao will take you to the inner door to show off. Well, you can see those elders taught by Benshao. Wang Kai said with a calm smile. Congratulations to the host for bragging successfully. You've gained 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Taught by the elders, this bragging was simply irrefutable. Sun Guantian and his brother looked at each other. When they saw Wang Kai walking into the room, they could not help shaking their heads and sighing. Although we can enter the heaven general realm at any time now, it will take several years to reach the peak, even if we practice the second heavenly Taoist skill, right? Sun Guantian suddenly felt a great pressure. He was afraid that if he broke through too late, he would not be able to keep up with Wang Kai. Elder brother, why don't we go to the B and C branches to find those disciples and exchange for some heavenly beads? If there are enough of them, we can easily reach the peak of the heaven general realm in a month. Sun Guantian said in a low voice. Whoosh! Hearing this, Sun Guantian's face changed. He quickly glanced around. After finding that no one had noticed them, he frowned and transmitted a voice message. Do you want to use the secret method of the Demon League? If we are discovered by the experts in the sect, we brothers will. We have to practice it sooner or later. Since the day our clans were destroyed, our fates have been doomed. Sun Guantian transmitted a voice message. Sun Guantian's eyes flickered rapidly, and his face changed again and again. He gritted his teeth and transmitted a voice message. Even if we can reach the realm that the young master needs, if we follow him, can we really? We can definitely do it. We can't wait any longer. Even if we don't get any help in the end, we still have to try. Otherwise, we won't be able to obtain the heavenly reaching churches. Sun Guandi said. At the same time, Wang Kai, who was sitting in his room, also noticed this scene. Wang Kai could not help but raise his eyebrows when he saw the Sun Guantian brothers secretly communicating with each other. He smiled with a curious expression. It seems that these two brothers are not easy to deal with. Their latent talent is mediocre, and the Taoist magic they cultivate is called the Heavenspan Taoist magic. However, their divine abilities and secret magics have never been revealed. Also, their bloodlines. Lord Cat seems to have some impression of them, but I don't think so. 1. Lord Cat returned to his original form and landed on the table. He stroked his long whiskers with a puzzled look in his eyes. Bloodline? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He knew a little about bloodline aura. For example, by Yen Yen's immortal divine flame bloodline, his dustless bloodline, sky-burning bloodline, and even the sovereign body Yang Wei's pure Yang tyrannical body. As long as he had seen his opponent fight or fought with him, he would be able to remember their bloodline aura. Are you suspecting what kind of bloodline they have? Wang Kai squinted his eyes and smiled in surprise. He could not help but feel proud of himself. He had just taken in 2 followers, and they were already awesome people. Ben Shao really has a good eye. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Humph, Lord Cat suspects that they are the direct descendants of the Magic Cauldron sect, which is one of the weakest of the 36 demon sects. Do you know what the Magic Cauldron sect is? Lord Cat stroked his long whiskers and smiled with sarcasm in his eyes. Demon sects, 36 demon sects, one of the weakest, Magic Cauldron sect? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He naturally did not know about the forces in Tianzhou. Currently, he only knew about the 3 strongest forces. First, Empyrean Palace. Second, Netherworld Retreat. Third, Heaven Martial Divine Palace. What does it mean? What is the ranking of the 36 demon sects among the 3,000 forces? Wang Kai frowned and asked in confusion. Looking at Lord Cat's expression, could it be that the Magic Cauldron sect was trash? If it was trash, how would Lord Cat know? After all, Lord Cat was originally a member of the second strongest force, Sky Reaching Church. The 36 demon sects do not have a ranking. They belong to the Netherworld Retreat. I don't know how many forces there are in Tianzhou. To be able to enter the top 3,000 forces, they have many followers. These subordinate followers will not appear in the ranking. Lord Cat stroked his long whiskers and said, there was no ranking. The 36 demon sects all belonged to the second strongest force, Netherworld Retreat. To be able to enter the top 3,000 forces, they had to have more or less subordinate forces. This proved that the forces in Tianzhou far exceeded the 3,000 forces. It was just that they did not have the qualifications to be ranked among the 3,000 forces. Since the Magic Cauldron sect is a subordinate force of the second strongest force, netherworld retreat, they must not be weak, right? TSK. It seems that this young master's eyes are really sharp. The two followers that I casually accepted have such an awesome identity and background. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled with a rather proud expression. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. The Magic Cauldron sect is just a puppet force for other elites to use as human cauldrons. In the Magic Cauldron sect, everyone is just a tool to strengthen other elites. Lord Cat stroked his long whiskers and smiled disdainfully. Human cauldron? Tool? Wang Kai frowned when he heard that. He asked curiously, "What do you mean?" It's very simple. The Magic Cauldron sect has a secret technique called the Sky Swallowing Technique. This secret technique allows one to swallow an extremely large amount of heavenly power. However, one cannot use it. When the heavenly power swallowed reaches a certain level, it can be transferred to other elite. Lord Cat stroked his long whiskers and smiled faintly. Sky Swallowing Technique. The heavenly power that one swallowed so painstakingly could not be used by oneself. Instead, it had to be used by others. Wang Kai's mouth twitched when he heard that. Such a diabolism sect really lived a miserable and tiring life. What happens after the transfer? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and asked. After the transfer, naturally, one will die. However, suddenly Lord Cat's gaze froze. His paws that were stroking his long whiskers paused. Seeing that, Wang Kai was stunned. He looked at Lord Cat in confusion and asked, "However, what? Is there any other use?" Once one cultivates the Magic Cauldron sex technique, he will be controlled by the Netherworld Dojo for the rest of his life. It's inevitable that he will die as a tool. However, if he doesn't cultivate the Magic Cauldron sex technique and only cultivates the secret technique of the transfer, he can use the heavenly power he swallowed. Lord Cat said with narrowed eyes. Wang Kai suddenly understood when he heard this. He couldn't help but shrug and smile. In that case, the secret method of transfer can actually strengthen oneself. The Magic Cauldron sect didn't do that because the method is controlled by the Netherworld Ashram, right? Chapter 631. It's not that simple. Transferring the sky swallowing skill has always been a useless secret skill. In Tianzhou, only the heavenly path technique can make up for the inadequacy of transferring the sky swallowing skill. Kid, you need to know that the heavenly path technique is a top technique that can accommodate thousands of secret skills. Cat Lord stroked his long whiskers and snorted proudly. Is that why Sun Guantian and his brother chose to join the heavenly path sect? Wang Kai squinted his eyes slightly. It was no wonder that as a vassal force of the Netherworld Taoist sect, they were willing to come to the heavenly path sect, which was only ranked 2,500, to be an outer disciple. Turned out that it was for the heavenly path technique that could accommodate the transfer of the sky swallowing skill. Before the Netherworld Taoist sect created the 36 demonic sects, the predecessor of the Magic Cauldron sect was just an unknown small family force. It was because this secret skill was valued by the Netherworld Taoist sect that it became one of the 36 sects. Cat Lord stroked his long whiskers and smiled. So what if it became one of the 36 sects? In the end, wasn't it a gift to others? Moreover, every time the transfer of the sky swallowing skill was used, it would lead to the death of the user. The Netherworld Taoist sect really knows how to play. As the second most powerful force, they are willing to lower their status and take in a small family that is not even worth a fart. They also impart the technique. In the end, the technique is used to control the Magic Cauldron sect. The transfer of the sky swallowing skill has become a tool for the experts of the Netherworld Taoist sect to strengthen themselves. Wang Kai shrugged and said with a smile. Patter. Lord Cat sat back, causing his plump body to sway back and forth a few times, causing the table to shake from his weight. It had to be said that Cat Lord's body was one of the best among cats. That's not what Cat Lord really cares about. The transfer of the sky-swallowing skill was created a long time ago by a disciple of the Heavenly Path technique. However, that disciple committed a crime and was expelled from the Heavenly Path technique. To prevent the Heavenly Path technique from being leaked, all his memories were destroyed. Cat Lord stroked his long whiskers and sighed. Whoosh! As soon as this was said, Wang Kai's expression froze. No wonder the transfer of the sky-swallowing skill could only be used with the Heavenly Path technique. This was the real reason. According to you, Sun Guantian and his brother are the descendants of that disciple? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and asked with a strange expression. Cat Lord gently nodded and stroked his long whiskers. Cat Lord is not sure. I just feel that their bloodline is very familiar. If I want to be sure, I will need them to transfer the sky-swallowing skill. This is simple. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders. He immediately flipped his hand and pushed open the door. His pressure swept out and directly captured Sun Guantian and his brother into the room. Seeing this scene, Cat Lord's body suddenly stiffened. He was so angry that he glared at Wang Kai. He said angrily, "Do you want to be frank with me? Would they say it? Wouldn't this act alert the enemy? Furthermore, how did they know that the heaven-span Taoist art could accommodate the heaven-devouring technique? What if the Yellow Spring Taoist rite intentionally sent someone here? Beat the grass to scare the snake? Was he sent by the Netherworld Ashram? They were all on the same side. Was it necessary?" Wang Kai was speechless. He curled his lips and turned to look at Sun Guantian and his brother. He smiled faintly and said, "The secret technique passed down in your family is called the sky-swallowing skill, right? Its real origin is the magic cauldron sect, right?" Whoosh! As soon as these words came out, Sun Guantian and his brother's expressions changed drastically. Sun Guantian stared at Sun Guandi with eyes full of blame. If he hadn't mentioned this outside, Wang Kai wouldn't have discovered it. Sun Guandi was also miserable at this moment. He looked at Sun Guantian innocently. He really wanted to say that he had just said it through secret sound transmission. How could Wang Kai hear it? "Haha, your ancestor is a disciple of the Heavenspan sect. Do you see this big fat cat? Yes, it discovered your bloodline. It is very similar to that disciple." Wang Kai waved his hand and smiled faintly. Whoosh! Hearing this, Sun Guantian and his brother noticed Cat Lord. Their eyes were dull as they stared blankly. They looked as if they were stupid. "Are you illusion god? God!" Plop! Plop! Suddenly, Sun Guantian and Sun Guantian both kneeled on the ground and kowtowed towards Cat Lord. They said in unison, "The reason why Ancestor was able to stay alive back then was all because of Sir Illusion God. We will thank you on behalf of Ancestor." Illusion God? What the F***ck? Wang Kai frowned when he saw this scene. He looked at Cat Lord with a strange expression and couldn't help but sneer. "Big stupid cat, you have quite a lot of identities." "Humph." Cat Lord stroked his long whiskers and snorted proudly. He turned to look at Sun Guantian and his brother and said faintly, "How did he recover his memory?" Replying to Illusion God, Ancestor had a feeling that his memory was incomplete. He searched all over the spiritual mountain and accidentally consumed a poisonous mushroom. Although he recovered his memory, he unfortunately died. Sun Guantian cupped his fist and said, "In order to recover that bad memory, he died." Wang Kai's mouth twitched when he heard this, but he understood the feelings of that disciple very well. If it were him and he found that his memory was incomplete, he would try his best to recover it. Even if it was a bad memory, he wouldn't want to lose it. Since he recovered his memory, why didn't he pass on the Tongtian Dao technique to the generations of the Sun family? Since you have become a vassal force of the Netherworld Taoist sect, why did you come to the Tongtian sect? Cat Lord squinted his eyes and asked suspiciously. Even if that disciple could survive, it was Cat Lord who saved him. But in Cat Lord's heart, the safety of the Tongtian sect was the most important thing. If Sun Guantian and his brother came with bad intentions, Cat Lord would not let them off easily. Ancestor recovered his memory and learned about the matter. In order to protect the Tongtian Dao technique, he didn't pass it on. We brothers came to the Tongtian sect because the Magic Cauldron sect has been destroyed. Sun Guantian gritted his teeth and said, "The Magic Cauldron sect has been destroyed?" Cat Elder paused when he heard that. His tone was still suspicious as he asked, "What happened?" The Netherworld Taoist sect wanted to increase the cultivation of their disciples quickly in order to compete with the Sky Martial Divine Palace for the second ranking. The price was that everyone in the Magic Cauldron sect used the Sky Swallowing skill. If the two of us weren't in the clan at that time, I'm afraid we would have, Sun Guantian said sadly. Oh, if that's the case, it's understandable. But, how did you know about Ancestor Xian? Since you know the others in the Magic Cauldron sect and the Netherworld Taoist sect. Cat Lord squinted his eyes and revealed his killing intent. Swoosh. Seeing this, Sun Guantian and his brother were shocked and quickly said in unison, "Only the direct descendants know about this. The sect master of the Magic Cauldron sect and us brothers. No one else knows." Chapter 632. Well, I know you two won't dare to lie. As for the truth of the Magic Cauldron sect's destruction, it's very easy for me to find out. Lord Cat stroked his long beard and said lightly. Hearing this, Wang Kai's mouth twitched slightly. He couldn't help but give him a thumbs up. He transmitted his voice with a smile. "Big stupid cat, you're good at bragging." Now, Lord Cat had to hide even in the sky-reaching church. How could he investigate the Magic Cauldron sect? That was one of the 36 demon sects, a vassal force of the Netherworld Taoist sect, the second largest force. Regarding this, Cat Lord's expression did not change. His calm and pretentious manner made Wang Kai raise his eyebrows. "It seems that you've inherited Bencheo's skills. Not bad, not bad. When bragging, you should be so calm and casual. This is the highest level." Wang Kai squinted his eyes and transmitted his voice with a smile. "Congratulations to the host for bragging successfully. You've gained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points." Sun Guantian cupped his fist and said with a sincere expression, "Lord Illusion God is exaggerating. The reason why our clan is able to survive until today is all because of your life-saving grace back then. Moreover, that Yellow Spring Taoist Hall is truly abominable and has deceived our Sun family. Why would us brothers help them and come to the sky-reaching school to commit such an evil deed?" Sun Guandi, who was standing at the side, also nodded repeatedly. Lord Cat gently nodded. His eyes were full of gratification. He stroked his long beard and asked faintly, "When are you two going to use the sky-swallowing skill?" Whoosh. Hearing this, Sun Guantian and Sun Guantian looked at each other and said in unison without any hesitation, "We've just discussed and decided to use it tonight." "Tonight?" "No." Lord Cat directly stopped them. Under the puzzled eyes of Sun Guantian and Sun Guantian, he continued, "The sky-swallowing skill cannot be used in the sky-reaching church. You can use it when you have a chance to leave the sky-reaching church." "Why not? With Ben Shao here, even if they were discovered by the experts of the sky-reaching church, what could they do? He has already reached the rank of 2,500. The experts in the sect are probably not that strong. Ben Shao only needs to lift a finger to crush them." Wang Kai shrugged and said with an indifferent smile, "Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to the host for breaking through to the 5th stage of the Heaven Origin stage." Whoosh. As soon as these words were spoken, Lord Cat was instantly enraged. He glared fiercely at Wang Kai, stroked his long beard and snorted, "Even if it's the inner sect. Oh, the outer sect's Elder Juyun, a heavenly king stage expert, you'll have a 50% chance against him. What's more, above the inner sect is the core palace." Core. Hearing this, Wang Kai twisted his eyebrows. He didn't expect the sky-reaching church to be so complicated. He shrugged his shoulders and said with a casual smile, "Ben Shao is just bragging. Why are you so excited?" Lord Cat was so angry that his body trembled slightly. He took a deep breath and wisely chose not to pay attention to him. He was afraid that he would go crazy because of anger. Phantom God is right. Young master, the core palace is the real mainstay of the sky-reaching church. Even a heavenly king stage expert is not qualified to enter there. Sun Guantian reminded him in a low voice. Sun Guandi also nodded and said, "That's right. I heard that only by entering the core palace can one get rid of the rules of killing and fighting in the sect and truly receive the cultivation and protection of the sky-reaching church. The core palace. Even a heavenly king stage expert is not qualified to enter." This was rather interesting. Wang Kai shrugged and said with an indifferent smile, "It's just the core palace. In Ben Shao's eyes, it's not much different from a public toilet. He can go there whenever he wants." Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. The core palace was actually compared to a public toilet. Sun Guantian and his brother were speechless on the spot. They were really shocked by Wang Kai's words. Lord Cat was so angry that he had already scratched off 2 of his long whiskers. There were more than 10 whiskers on his cheeks that had been pulled off because of Wang Kai's bragging. Now, he looked bald. You too must remember that you can't expose Lord Cat's identity for the time being. As for transferring the sky-swallowing technique, it won't be too late to use it after leaving the sky-reaching church. Of course, if you're not afraid of death, you can use it now," Lord Cat warned in a deep voice. Then, he turned into his white whiskers and floated into Wang Kai's hair. He was afraid that if he stayed any longer, he would be angered to death by Wang Kai's bragging. Phantom God, but Sun Guantian and his brother were anxious. However, Lord Cat had already disappeared and did not intend to answer them. Lord Cat would not interfere with their choice. What's there to be afraid of? Just use it. With Ben Shao here, no one in Tianzhou can touch you 2 brothers. Well, if 1 comes, I'll kill 1. If 2 comes, I'll kill a pair. If 3 comes, I'll kill a group. Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and smiled proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. This, Sun Guantian and his brother looked at each other. Finally, they shook their heads and said, "Young master, let's wait until we leave the sky-reaching church." Swoosh. As soon as these words came out, the corner of Wang Kai's mouth twitched. His forehead was full of black lines as he stared at them. He had never thought that these 2 would doubt his ability. Boy, the feeling of failing miserably at an easy task is very good, right? Lord Cat immediately transmitted his voice and laughed gloatingly. Wang Kai's face turned ugly when he heard this. He stared at them unkindly and said coldly, "Is Ben Shao your young master or the big stupid cat? Who do you listen to?" Of course, we listen to young master and Phantom God," Sun Guantian and his brother said awkwardly. Seeing this, Wang Kai suddenly took a deep breath and said angrily, "Next time when Ben Shao brags, you must support him and listen. Do you understand? Does that mean that as long as you flatter him verbally, you can do it or not in private?" Sun Guantian and his brother were stunned. They had a clear understanding of Wang Kai's weirdness. This young master is not simple. Yes, young master. We are going to use the transfer sky swallowing technique, Sun Guantian and his brother said in unison. Hearing this, Wang Kai gently nodded his head in satisfaction. Then, he tapped his finger on the table and said indifferently, "Since that's the case, let's use it now. Right in front of this young master." Whoosh! As soon as these words came out, Sun Guantian and Sun Guantian's faces stiffened. For a moment they were dumbfounded on the spot. They really wanted to say that this was not what they had just discussed. However, Wang Kai's unquestionable appearance had already cut off their way of retreat. F***CKU. I told you two to listen to the big stupid cat. Now you regret it, right? Wang Kai looked at their miserable appearance and couldn't help but sneer secretly. Chapter 633. This, Sun Guantian and his brother wanted to die. They really didn't know how to deal with a young master like Wang Kai. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have flattered Illusion God in front of Wang Kai. But after thinking about it, it was useless. Illusion God and Wang Kai were both together. If one was satisfied, the other would be dissatisfied. It's really not easy to be a follower. Looking at the miserable appearance of the two brothers, Wang Kai raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled leisurely. You two need to remember one thing. Those who believe in me will live forever. Well, use the sky swallowing technique. If anyone acts tough in the sky-reaching church, Ben Shao will destroy him. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've gained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Hearing this, Sun Guantian and his brother were speechless. If he was really so awesome, he wouldn't have stayed in the outer sect. He would have directly entered the core hall, okay? But they only dared to think about it. If they said it out loud, with Wang Kai's character, they didn't know how he would deal with them. They didn't know that Wang Kai's own strength was indeed not enough to crush the sky-reaching church, but the great summoning technique might be different. This was also one of the important reasons why Wang Kai dared to be so rampant. He didn't directly enter the inner sect or even the core hall because he wanted to help Cat Lord investigate things. Of course, if there was an invincible expert coming to provoke him, with Wang Kai's character, why aren't you using it? What are you waiting for? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows slightly and smiled casually. Whoosh! Sun Guantian and his brother looked at each other. Finally, they gritted their teeth and said with a look of desperation, "Let's use it now." Originally, they planned to use the sky-swallowing technique to reach the peak of the Heaven General Realm as soon as possible and follow Wang Kai into the inner sect. They hesitated before because of Cat Lord's reminder. But now that he thought about it, if he didn't give it a shot, he would probably have to continue staying in the outer court. At that time, wouldn't he be unable to accomplish anything? Well, quickly use it. Ben Shao wants to see how powerful this so-called heaven-swallowing technique is. Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and asked with a surprised expression. Whoosh! Sun Guantian and his brother suddenly stood up and cupped their fists together. Young master, we can't use it for the time being. We don't have the heavenly bead to devour it. Patter! Once these words were spoken, Wang Kai's expression immediately froze. His fingers, which were tapping on the table, became a little heavier. Black lines appeared on his forehead as he stared at them. His gaze was rather unfriendly as he said, "Do you guys spend a lot of time as Ben Shao? Don't you know that Ben Shao can sleep with a stunning beauty at any time, and even destroy a top 10 force? Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points." After talking for so long, in the end, there were no heavenly beads required to use the heaven-swallowing technique at all. Sun Guantian and his brother were so scared that their faces turned pale. They hurriedly cupped their fists together and shouted, "Young master, please wait a moment. We will go to that house and snatch some." Whoosh! As soon as they finished speaking, the two of them turned around and were about to run away. However, just as they moved, they were stopped by Wang Kai. "Why are you going to that house? If you want to go, go to the house. The house has been snatched away by Ben Shao. You guys should go to the B and C houses. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled with a rather indifferent expression. Hearing this, Sun Guantian and his brother were about to cry. What they were afraid of really came true. With their cultivation level, they could dominate that house. However, if they went to the other houses, there were many people who were at the same level as them, or even stronger than them. What are you still standing there for? Hurry up and go. Just mention Ben Xiao's name. If anyone is not convinced, come back and look for Ben Xiao. As Ben Xiao's followers, you don't even have the imposing manner of a fox assuming the majesty of the tiger. What use does Ben Xiao have for you? Wang Kai frowned and seemed to be exasperated at them for not living up to his expectations. Whoosh! The corners of Sun Guantian and his brother's mouths twitched violently. They really wanted to know. Did they become followers just to assume the majesty of the tiger? This young master was really not simple. As Sun Guantian and his brother left, Wang Kai lay on his back on the chair and suddenly felt extremely bored. He said, "Big stupid cat, is the matter you are investigating in the inner gate or the core hall?" "The inner gate is fine. The core hall is the best," Lord Cat replied softly. Whoosh! Wang Kai raised his eyebrows when he heard this. He immediately stood up and took out his folding fan. He smiled faintly and said, "In that case, let's go to the inner gate and the core hall." "Hee boy, Lord Cat has to remind you that before I find out what happened, I will not do anything." Before Lord Cat could finish his words, Wang Kai waved his hand and interrupted him. He said faintly, "It's just the sky-reaching church. When the time comes, Ben Xiao will summon his eldest disciple, Sun Wukong. Pudu, and the others actually let their disciples kill each other. It's time to teach them a lesson. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have gained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points." Sun Wukong? Lord Cat was puzzled when he heard this. He could not help but ask curiously, "Is it the monkey demon that was summoned in the soul-breaking valley? Didn't he want to kill you with a stick at that time? When did he become your disciple?" Whoosh! Hearing this, Wang Kai's mouth twitched. He could not help but activate his mind and glance at the bragging points that he had now. Host, Wang Kai occupation, Heavenly Martial Artist Realm, Level 4 Heaven Origin Doctrine Technique, Path of Heaven Magic, Luck Deprivation Skill, Great Summoning Skill Equipment, Ever-Changing Fan Heavenly Power, Level 3 Astral Origin Points, 0 Physique, Invulnerable Guardian Beast, None Bragging Points, 22500 Experience, 50000700000. Wang Kai squinted his eyes. After a glance, he activated his mind and closed it. He laughed secretly. More than 20,000 points. I need 10,000 points to upgrade the summoning function. When the time comes, will he still dare to disobey me? Brat, what the hell are you planning? Lord Cat listened to Wang Kai's sneer and sensed his extremely evil smile. He could not help but feel worried. He was afraid that he would really turn the sky-reaching church upside down. "Nothing. I'm just thinking about how the female disciples of the sky-reaching church look like. The outer sect is too ugly. I'd better go to the inner sect or the core palace to have a look," Wang Kai said with a playful smile. Whoosh! Just as Wang Kai stepped out of the room, Lord Cat suddenly said, "Then you should go to the Hall of the Goddess, the Saintess, and the Spiritual Lady of the Sky-Reaching Church. As long as you can successfully win the heart of one of them, even if you don't enter the inner sect or the core palace, you can help Lord Cat find out some things." The Hall of the Goddess, the Saintess, and the Spiritual Lady. Wang Kai's footsteps paused. He immediately closed his folding fan and laughed proudly. "Haha, it's simple. As long as they see Ben Xiao's handsome appearance and extraordinary temperament, they will cry and shout for Ben Xiao to accept them. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points." Lord Cat was worried and helpless. He could only pray secretly. In order to find out the reason for the decline of the sky reaching church, this is the only way. If one of you can really be with Wang Kai, it may not be a bad thing. Chapter 634. Outer Gate, Life and Death Forest. Wang Kai gently waved his folding fan and walked into the life and death forest at a leisurely pace. Here, disciples could be seen fighting everywhere, and the screams between disciples could be heard. On the ground, corpses could be seen everywhere. Even the corpses of disciples who had just died were still bleeding. The place where the outer sect disciples fight each other is called the Forest of Life and Death. It is the same as the 4 courtyards of A, B, C, and D, and is located at the waist of the Tong Tian Peak. Then, after passing through the Forest of Life and Death, is it the Spirit Maiden Peak that you mentioned? Wang Kai's eyebrows slightly raised as he asked with a curious expression. Yes, after passing through the Life and Death Forest, you can reach the back of the Tongtian Peak. There are 6 peaks there: Goddess Peak, Holy Maiden Peak, Spirit Maiden Peak, Divine Sun Peak, Holy Sun Peak, and Spiritual Sun Peak. Cat Lord transmitted his voice. Divine Sun, Holy Daughter, Spiritual Sun, and Spiritual Daughter. Wang Kai twisted his eyebrows when he heard that. He said with a playful smile, "So, those 6 are the strongest disciples of the Tongtian sect? They can even hold a peak by themselves. TSK. Of course, the previous sect master and 5 deputy sect masters of the Tongtian sect are selected from among them. If they reach a certain cultivation level, they can hold up the sect." Cat Lord transmitted his voice proudly. 1 sect master and 5 deputy sect masters. Divine Sun, Holy Daughter, Spiritual Sun, and Spiritual Daughter. A total of 6 people, and all of them were taken by them. In that case, their talent and cultivation must be very strong, right? No wonder they were arranged in the back of the Tongtian Peak. If the people who held up the sect in the future were killed, the Tongtian sect would decline for a long time. Boy, are you new here? Quickly hand over the Tongtian bead and wushi, and we may let you live. Suddenly, with a harsh sneer, Wang Kai was stunned. He couldn't help but turn his head and see 4 disciples in black robe. They were holding long sabers and swords in their hands and walking over with a cold face. "Are you sure you're talking to this young master?" Wang Kai couldn't help but rub his nose and ask in a rather speechless manner. From Wang Kai's point of view, he had just destroyed the A-class, and his name had already shaken the entire outer sect. But now, someone actually came to stir up trouble. Little did they know that these disciples had no idea what Wang Kai had done. It could be said that none of the disciples who were fighting in the Life and Death Forest knew Wang Kai at all. After all, not all disciples could be like the A-class disciples, who only needed to peacefully cultivate every day and didn't need to fight to obtain heaven-span pearls and martial foods. "Yo, brothers, did you hear that? He's asking us if we're talking to him." A young disciple waved his sword and smiled. Once these words were spoken, the other 3 disciples immediately started to laugh heartily. "Sigh, there's a path to heaven, but you don't want to take it. You just have to court death in front of the King of Hell, Ben Shao. Forget it, seeing that you don't know Ben Shao will spare you this time." Scram. Wang Kai shrugged and waved his hand impatiently. Wang Kai really wasn't in the mood to deal with these opponents who could be eliminated with a wave of his hand. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the 6th level of the Heavenly Origin stage. Ha ha ha. He actually said he's the King of Hell and wanted to spare us. This silly boy must be a new hothead. Maybe he's used to being wild and comfortable at home. Heh, I like to teach this kind of poser a lesson. Whoosh. The 4 disciples looked at each other and sneered as they surrounded Wang Kai. Seeing this scene, Wang Kai's eyebrows suddenly twisted. His forehead was full of black lines as he closed his fan. He gritted his teeth and sneered, F***CKU. Sometimes, if I don't beat you up, you really don't know how to grow up. Cram. Buzz. Bang 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 bang. War. Suddenly, under Wang Kai's roar, the bodies of the 4 disciples were sent flying. Blood sprayed out from their mouths like streams of water. Plop. Boom boom boom. As the 4 disciples fell to the ground, they all died on the spot. They didn't even have the chance to struggle and breathe. With a shout, they couldn't be more dead. Who do you think you are? You're just 4 pieces of trash who have just entered the Heaven General realm. How dare you pester this young master? This young master will kill all of you so that you can remember to be reincarnated. Don't act tough. Wang Kai snorted coldly with an ugly expression. He thought that it would save him a lot of trouble when he became an expert. But now it seemed that no matter how strong he was, he had to be famous. Otherwise, the other party wouldn't know who he was and would come looking for trouble. However, this scene was also witnessed by many of the surrounding disciples who were fighting. In fact, some of the hidden disciples who wanted to attack Wang Kai were so frightened that their faces turned deathly white. Their bodies trembled as they fell to the ground. They thought that Wang Kai must be a new disciple who had just joined the sky-reaching sect. After all the new disciples would be as arrogant as him. But the result surprised everyone. They secretly felt lucky that they didn't go to look for trouble first. Senior brother, we're sorry to disturb you. Sorry, senior brother, we'll leave now. Then, those disciples who were fighting stopped attacking at the same time. They cupped their fists and bowed to Wang Kai, then quickly left. They were afraid that Wang Kai would find trouble with them again. That would be the end of them. Wait, stop. Following Wang Kai's soft shout, the bodies of all the disciples suddenly stiffened. Bitter smiles filled their faces as they paused and turned around to look at Wang Kai with pleading eyes. Don't be afraid. Benshao stopped you because he wanted you to remember a name. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled casually. Remember a name? Many disciples were startled when they heard this and looked at Wang Kai in confusion. Yes, the owner of this name is the ruler of Tianzhou, the ruler of the universe, the killer of thousands of beauties, and the nemesis of countless geniuses. His name is Wang Kai. That is Benshao. Wang Kai's expression was calm. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Everyone, originally, after hearing Wang Kai's introduction, they thought the name he mentioned might be a powerhouse from the past to the present. But in the end, he was talking about himself. This level of bragging was truly unparalleled. Ahem, yes, Wang Kai senior brother, we will remember. That's right, Wang Kai senior brother, the most powerful ruler of Tianzhou. Wang Kai senior brother, we will leave now. Then, all the disciples' lips twitched and they scattered in all directions. They were terrified that if they stayed, they would either be killed by Wang Kai or be blown to death by him. Chapter 635. Sky Connecting Peak, Back Mountain. At the foot of Spiritual Maiden Peak. At this moment, there were thousands of black-robed disciples standing at the foot of the mountain. In front of them, at the entrance of Spiritual Maiden Peak, stood a green-clothed young lady. Everyone, if you wish to meet the Spiritual Maiden, you must lift this cauldron and walk 100 meters. I believe that everyone is clear about the rules. Since that's the case, let's begin. The green-clothed young lady stood quietly at the entrance of the mountain. She raised her arm and pointed at the copper cauldron in front of her. The bronze cauldron was 1 meter high and 1 meter wide. It was situated in front of the mountain gate. It looked like a guardian deity who was guarding the gate. It was blocking the several thousand disciples of the transcending heaven immortal cult. After the green-clothed young lady's words faded, the thousands of disciples looked at each other. They laughed dryly and waved their hands or shook their heads. The disciples present, including the many present and future disciples, had all tried to lift the cauldron. None of them were able to lift it. Even if there were a small number of disciples who were able to lift the cauldron, they were only able to walk a dozen steps at most. They were still very far from 100 meters. Even though none of them were able to pass, the many disciples gathered here were still hoping that they could take a look at the spiritual maiden from afar. Of course, they also wanted to see who would be able to break the rules. Seeing this scene, the green-clothed young lady's eyes were filled with disdain. She pursed her red lips and sneered without concealing anything. She said faintly, "Since none of you have the ability, there's no need to surround here. Quickly return." Hearing these words, the thousands of disciples seemed to be used to it. They did not show any anger. Instead, they shrugged their shoulders, shook their heads and smiled as they retreated a few hundred steps. With regards to this, the green-clothed young lady was helpless. Even if the copper cauldron could prevent them from entering the mountain, it could not stop them from surrounding it from afar. TSK, as expected of the sky connecting sex spiritual maiden. There are actually so many disciples waiting at the foot of the mountain. Even further away, Wang Kai was standing in the forest behind Sky Connecting Peak, looking down at the spiritual maiden peak's entrance. The scene that he saw was truly amusing. On the back of their robes, there was the word Tong. Could they be inner disciples? Core disciples? Wang Kai's eyes narrowed as he curiously sized up the robes of those disciples. It was the same color as the Taoist robes worn by the outer court disciples, which was black. However, there was no writing on the back of the outer sect disciples' Taoist robe, nor was there any writing on the front. The thousands of disciples present all had the word "pass" on their backs and above their chests. They are all inner disciples and core disciples. Their Taoist robes have the word Tian on them, Lord Cat said calmly. For inner disciples, the word Tong was written on their robes. For core disciples, the word Tian was written on their robes. Then, what about the spiritual ladies, spiritual sons, saintesses, and even divine sons and divine daughters? Wang Kai couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He secretly felt that the sky-reaching church was worthy of being called a powerful force. Every tiny matter had a clear distinction between high and low. "Kid, are you sure you want to go to Spirit Maiden Peak and not Saintess Peak or Goddess Peak?" Cat Grandpa asked with a surprised tone. With Wang Kai's character, he should have gone straight to Goddess Peak, which had the highest status. However, he had chosen to go to Spirit Maiden Peak, which was ranked third. There's no hurry. With Bencheo's heroic appearance, it's easy for him to win the hearts of a few ladies. Since I'm here, let's start from Spirit Maiden Peak. The more the better. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled casually. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. One by one, the more, the better. Hearing such words, Cat Grandpa despised him and simply ignored him. It wasn't a bad thing that Wang Kai could go to Spirit Maiden Peak first. If he went to Goddess Peak, which had the highest status, and suffered a setback, he could only count on entering the inner sect and then the core hall if he wanted to find out the truth. Born with divine strength, excellent in literature and martial arts. Others hold swords, but I use nail clippers. It's just a bronze cauldron, but I can throw it with a flick of my finger. It's only 100 steps away, but I can cover it in a breath. Wang Kai shook his head and recited softly. As his voice faded, he arrived in front of the bronze cauldron. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Whoosh. Such a narcissistic poem, and such a dissolute young man who shook his head and fanned himself immediately attracted the attention of all the disciples present. Even the girl in green was stunned as she stared blankly at Wang Kai. She had never thought that there would be such a strange disciple in the sky-reaching church. Say that he was bragging? But he dared to stand in front of the bronze cauldron. saying that he had strength, but looking at his dissolute appearance, he seemed like a weak scholar. For a moment, all the disciples were secretly surprised as they looked at Wang Kai. They wanted to know if he dared to lift the bronze cauldron. Or should they say whether he could lift it or not? Looking at your clothes, you should be an outer disciple, right? The girl in green came to her senses and fixed her eyes on Wang Kai's Taoist robe. There was no word Tong or Tian on it. Whoosh! As soon as these words came out, all the disciples were stunned. They hurriedly looked at Wang Kai's Taoist robe. They didn't notice it just now because they were a little confused by Wang Kai's poem. He's really an outer disciple. Haha, this is a good show. How many years has it been? He's the first one who dares to come here, right? Tsk, I vaguely remember that more than 10 years ago, many outer disciples often came here to try. Unfortunately, they failed every time. Sometimes they would be, beaten up by us. Don't. It's not easy for an outer disciple to come here. How can we bully him? Let him try. Ha, you're right. You're right. In an instant, many inner disciples sneered. They were extremely disdainful of Wang Kai, who was only an outer disciple, coming to Spirit Maiden Peak to try his luck. So what if he's an outer disciple? What you inner disciples can't do doesn't mean that Ben Shao can't do. Take this bronze cauldron as an example. You can't lift it, but Ben Shao can do it in one breath. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled indifferently. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. He can lift the bronze cauldron in one breath? Whoosh! Such words made many disciples despise him. They sneered and stared at Wang Kai with murderous intent in their eyes. Since you've boasted so much, go ahead. If you can't lift it, today you'll die here. You can begin. Outer disciple trash. A mere outer disciple dares to come to Spirit Maiden Peak to try his luck? Do you want to climb up the social ladder? You really don't know what's good for you. Whoosh! Hearing such words, Wang Kai squinted his eyes and a cold light flashed. He immediately turned around and closed his folding fan. He sneered and said, "Tell me, how do you want to die?" Chapter 636. Idiot, who are you calling a bastard? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and gave a playful smile. He was secretly sizing up the little girl standing on the stone steps with amazement in his heart. The little girl was wearing a light purple dress. Her black hair fluttered in the wind, and her eyes were extremely bright. She had a pretty nose and those thin lips that were pursed. Together with her face that seemed to be born with a child's complexion, she was indeed very lethal. However, Wang Kai could tell, and so could the many disciples in the distance. This little girl had cultivated for at least 100 years. The housekeeper of the spiritual Maiden Peak, Guan Qingqing. Rumor has it that this girl has accompanied the spiritual maiden since she was young. Her cultivation is unfathomable, and is not any weaker than the spiritual maiden. He actually lured her out. It looks like this rash outer sect disciple has no way out. Not necessarily. He has already severely injured the personal maid of the spiritual maiden. Housekeeper Guan Qingqing did not do anything to him when she came down. Many disciples were whispering to each other. Each of them had their own opinions and were endless. However, there was only one thing in common. All the disciples' eyes were filled with fear towards Guan Qingqing. You're very powerful. Guan Qingqing narrowed her eyes and walked down with her hands behind her back. From the beginning to the end, she did not look at the unconscious girl in green. Ben Shao is naturally powerful. For someone with a small body like yours, Ben Shao can easily cripple you. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled with a licentious expression. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Whoosh! When these words came out, Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes were instantly filled with anger. Especially when she saw Wang Kai's licentious smile, she naturally guessed the meaning behind his words. Since you have already raised the bronze cauldron, it proves that you have the qualifications to meet the spiritual maiden. However, the spiritual maiden is not at the spiritual maiden peak. She has gone to the saintess peak. If you insist on meeting the spiritual maiden, I can bring you to the saintess peak. However, do you dare to go? Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes were filled with ridicule as she pursed her lips and smiled. The spiritual maiden was not at the spiritual maiden peak. She had gone to the saintess peak. She actually dared to ask if he dared to go? Wang Kai's eyes immediately narrowed when he heard these words. He immediately opened his fan and smiled faintly. What a joke! In this world, where can't Ben Shao go? Wherever he goes, he will be praised and worshipped. What does a mere holy maiden peak count for? Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Whoosh! Hearing Wang Kai's arrogant words, Guan Qingqing pursed her red lips and smiled coldly. She turned around and walked towards the mountain path on the left with her hands behind her back. She said indifferently, "Since you have such courage, then come. You are so awesome." When Wang Kai saw this, he suddenly smiled disdainfully. He immediately put one hand behind his back and the other hand gently fanned himself as he leisurely followed behind her. He actually agreed. God, doesn't he know that the weakest disciples waiting at the foot of the saintess peak are at the peak of the sky origin stage? There are quite a few heavenly king stage disciples. I heard that there are even core disciples there. There are even a few above the heavenly king stage. Fortunately, no one can lift the bronze cauldron set up by the spiritual maiden. Otherwise, if the core disciples were to come, how would we dare to come? Many of the inner disciples shook their heads and sighed inwardly. They all looked at Wang Kai's back with a look of pity. In their opinion, Wang Kai would definitely not return. What's your name? How long have you been in the sky-reaching school? Looking at your clothes, you are only an outer disciple, right? Where did you get the courage to behave so atrociously at the spiritual maiden peak? On the mountain path, Guan Qingqing placed her hands behind her back and used the tone of an elder as she asked her questions in an unhurried manner. Hearing this, Wang Kai could not help but shake his head and laugh. Although Guan Qingqing had been cultivating for 100 years, she did not look much different from a little girl. However, she used the tone of an elder. It was really interesting. I'm Wang Kai. I've joined the sky-reaching school for less than a day. I'm indeed an outer court disciple. As for where did you get your guts from? Where did you get your guts from? How dare you talk to me like that? Aren't you afraid that blood will flow? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and smiled mockingly. Whoosh! Blood will flow, this pervert! Guan Qingqing's body stiffened when she heard this. She secretly gritted her teeth and cursed. Then, she quickened her pace and did not talk to Wang Kai along the way. Kid, what are you waiting for? She is the spiritual maiden of the heavenly reaching sect. Lord Cat suddenly transmitted his voice to Lin Fan. Whoosh! As soon as these words were spoken, Wang Kai's expression froze. He couldn't help but stand in place and stare blankly at Guan Qingqing, who was walking as if she was flying. She is the spiritual maiden? Isn't she the housekeeper of the spiritual maiden peak and the childhood friend of the spiritual maiden highness? As the spiritual maiden, saintess, and goddess of the heavenly reaching sect, there is a mark of the sect master on their Tao bones. It can be considered as a divine thought. As long as they are in danger, they can summon the divine thought of the sect master to defend themselves. Lord Cat transmitted his voice. I see. If Lord Cat was not an elite of the heavenly reaching sect, he would have been fooled by her. Thinking of this, Wang Kai's eyebrows suddenly twisted. He immediately took a step forward and stopped Guan Qingqing in an instant. Looking at Wang Kai's strange and evil smile, Guan Qingqing's beautiful curved brows furrowed. Pursing her lips, she asked in a crisp voice, "Why are you stopping this steward and not leaving? Spiritual Maiden Highness, do you still want to act tough in front of Ben Shao? I am not afraid to tell you that Ben Shao was born with a pair of heaven's eyes. He can see through all the obstacles in the world with just one glance. Ben Shao has already seen the divine thought mark on your Dao bones." Wang Kai shrugged and pretended to be mysterious. "Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to Grade 8 Heavenly Origin stage." Swoosh. Upon hearing these words, Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes were instantly filled with shock. Her petite body even took a few steps back as she stared at Wang Kai with caution. Her red lips moved as she coldly said, "Who exactly are you? What is your purpose in sneaking into the Heavenly Reaching sect? Are you sent by the Netherworld Taoist sect?" "The Netherworld Taoist sect?" Wang Kai frowned when he heard this. Lord Cat, who was hiding in his hair, was even more confused. Could it be that the Heavenly Reaching sect was knocked out of the top 2,500 because of the Netherworld Taoist sect? The Netherworld Taoist sect is nothing. In Ben Shao's eyes, such a trashy and weak force can be destroyed with just a toe. Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and sneered with disdain. "Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points." Chapter 637. He was so arrogant. Hearing this, Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes narrowed. She flipped her jade hand and summoned the bronze cauldron. Smiling faintly, she said, "So, you are the so-called bounty killer?" "Bounty killer?" Wang Kai was startled. He really didn't know anything about the name she mentioned. He couldn't help but secretly send a voice transmission to ask about Cat Lord. Bounty killer. Wang Kai understood Guan Qingqing's meaning after hearing Lord Cat's explanation. Tianzhou was divided into 6 regions. They were East Upper Region, Underworld Tao Region, South Upper Region, Sky Martial Region, North Upper Region, Tongtian Region, West Upper Region, and Pharmacist Region. The 9 Heavens Region was in the middle. The 6th region was where the Sky Reaching Church was located. It was the most chaotic region in Tianzhou. There were experts from all kinds of forces in this region. Traitors from all kinds of forces, as well as notorious demons and villains in Tianzhou, would settle down in this region. The 6th region did not have a specific name. Everyone had their own opinions about it. Some people called the 6th domain the Sin domain, while others called it the Chaotic domain. Some even called the 6th region the Abandoned region. Of course, the most common name was the Bounty region. This was because most of the experts in the 6th region had committed heinous crimes and were ostracized by the other forces, as well as individual experts. As long as they were killed, their heads could be exchanged for a huge bounty. The Heaven Reaching Church was knocked out of the top 2,500th place, and driven out of the realm of Heaven Reaching. However, the Sky Reaching Church was not completely destroyed. Therefore, even if they hid in the 6th region, many of their old rivals and enemies would come to kill them. The Underworld Taoist sect is ranked 2nd among the 3,000 forces in Tianzhou. Since they are so powerful, why don't they just attack the 6th region and destroy the Sky Reaching Church? Why find some bounty killers? Wang Kai shrugged and sneered with a contemptuous expression. Whoosh! Guan Qingqing frowned and looked at Wang Kai strangely. She said in surprise, "It seems that you are not a bounty killer. How did you sneak into the Sky Reaching Church? To be able to see the divine sense on my Dao mark, your cultivation is at least above the Heaven Monarch realm. Kid, the forces and rogue cultivators in the 6th domain are extremely chaotic. Even though the Acheron Sanctum is ranked 2nd, it can't interfere in the affairs of the 6th domain. Even the Empyrean Palace has to follow the rules, Cat Lord said through telepathy. Wang Kai's eyes narrowed slightly. He could not help but wave his fan as he transmitted his voice with a smile. If that's the case, there are still experts in the 6th region that the Empyrean Palace and the Netherworld Ritual Ground are wary of? In response to this, Cat Lord remained silent. He did not refute or admit to it. From this, it could be seen that Cat Lord was also very unwilling to talk about this matter. However, such a situation made Wang Kai even more curious. How strong was the expert who couldn't even speak? What kind of realm is the Heavenly Monarch realm? Wang Kai shrugged and asked casually. Swoosh. As soon as these words came out, it immediately caused Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes to be stunned. She stared blankly at Wang Kai. After a long while, she pursed her lips and said in shock, "You actually don't know the Sky Monarch realm? Haha, what is there to be surprised about? Benshio's cultivation is too high. He has been cultivating for hundreds of millions of years. There are some things that I can't remember clearly." Wang Kai waved his hand and pretended to be experienced. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. In response, Guan Qingqing did not hide her disdainful sneer. She flipped the bronze cauldron into the sky and waved her hands. Waves of powerful aura swept out. Buzz. It was just an aura, but it made Wang Kai frown. He felt that his body was about to collapse from the pressure. Dao intent? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes. This aura was exactly the same as the Dao intent that he had displayed before. You are not a Heaven Monarch realm expert. Tell me, how did you see through the Dao mark's divine sense? Guan Qingqing frowned and scolded angrily. It was just a casual release of a trace of Dao intent, but it was already hard for Wang Kai to bear. Such a scene immediately made Guan Qingqing even more puzzled. Are you an idiot? Which forces spiritual lady, saintess, and goddess do not have divine sense on their Dao marks? Do you still need Ben Shao to answer such a simple question? Even if this young master is extremely talented, shocking both ancient and modern times, I will not answer every question. Wang Kai frowned and snorted disdainfully. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Swoosh. As soon as these words came out, Guan Qingqing's breath stopped. She could not help but withdraw the Dao intent that she had released. Indeed, any force's spiritual lady would be protected by the master's divine sense. Wang Kai's words were not wrong. However, then how did you find out that my Dao mark had divine sense? Guan Qingqing pursed her red lips and asked in a delicate voice. Without the pressure of the Dao insight, Wang Kai instantly felt his entire body lighten, and when he heard this, he was even more speechless in his heart. If he knew earlier that this spirit maiden was so formidable, then he wouldn't have rashly come here no matter what. To be able to cultivate to the level of Dao intent proved that Guan Qingqing had already cultivated the 5th heavenly Dao technique. The 5th Dao technique was something that only experts above the Heavenly King realm could cultivate. A spiritual lady was ranked above the Heavenly King realm. Then what about the saintess? What about the goddess? If he really went, wouldn't he be asking for trouble? Thinking of this, Wang Kai immediately dispelled the idea of going to the saintess peak. He stared at Guan Qingqing in front of him and thought for a while before saying, "You are really an idiot. Ben Shao just casually said it and casually tested you. You took the bait yourself. Who can you blame for this? At the end of the day, it's Ben Shao who is too smart and you are too stupid." Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Casually tested. Casually said it. Swoosh. Guan Qingqing immediately clenched her teeth when she heard these words. She had been so righteous before, but now she was quibbling. It doesn't matter if you don't say it. When I capture you and bring you to the Saintess Peak, Sister Yunshi will have a way to make you talk. Swoosh. As soon as Guan Qingqing finished speaking, she flipped her jade-like hand, causing the copper cauldron to suddenly expand. Then, it fell directly and trapped Wang Kai inside. Along the way, there was the suppression of Dao intent, causing Wang Kai to be unable to move at all. He could only helplessly watch the copper cauldron fall with a face full of helplessness. This time I've really bragged. Big stupid cat, damn you. Why didn't you tell Ben Shao about the spiritual lady's cultivation level earlier? This act of pretentiousness is broken. Wang Kai stood alone in the copper cauldron and looked at the pitch-black surroundings. He could not help but hold his forehead with his hand and sigh in a rather speechless manner. Chapter 638. Cat Lord was infuriated. He snorted unhappily. Brat, Cat Lord reminded you before you came. Moreover, didn't you say that you wanted to conquer them with your looks? What does it have to do with cultivation? In that case, it really didn't matter. At the end of the day, he had underestimated the so-called spiritual lady and saintess of the sky-reaching sect. The forces ranked below 2,500 had been driven to the barren mountains of the 6th region. It was true that a starving camel was still bigger than a horse. This young master is only letting her taste some sweetness for the time being. When we reach the Saintess Peak, this young master will naturally display his supreme domineering aura and charm the spiritual lady and saintess. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and smiled with an indifferent expression. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Regarding this, Cat Lord expressed his disdain and chose to ignore it. He remained silent and did not say a word. Little did he know that Wang Kai was speechless at this moment. He had never expected that a spiritual lady ranked 3rd would have a cultivation level higher than a heavenly king. All-breaking universal drill. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the all-breaking universal drill. 500 bragging points have been consumed. Buzz. Patter. As a golden iron rod appeared in Wang Kai's hand, he used the eye of truth to take a look. The corner of his mouth twitched violently. It was really a drill, but it looked like it was 1 foot long and 3 centimeters thick, but its appearance was similar to that of a heavenly king. It's really a top-grade system. The things it produces are also top-grade. Wang Kai muttered, his forehead full of black lines. He immediately waved his arm forward. Sister Yunshi, look, I've brought you a big bad guy. Crack. Buzz, Suddenly, just after the bronze cauldron was broken, Wang Kai's figure did not slow down. He held the diamond that was like a man's penis and bent his waist to deliver the spear to the face of a woman in a black dress. This woman was extremely beautiful, so beautiful that it was suffocating. Her features were picturesque, her appearance was like a fairy's, and her skin was whiter than snow. Especially her slender arms and slender legs, they emitted a gentle glow that seemed as if they could be broken by the slightest breeze. What was truly beautiful was her eyes. It was a pair of eyes full of wisdom, but also full of sadness. It was as if she had been living in pain all this time. Looking at it up close, Wang Kai's lips and her red lips were almost touching. Fortunately, the diamond drill in his hand had disappeared. Otherwise, it would have pierced the belly of the woman in the black dress. Miss, you seem to be in a bad mood. Did some hooligans bully you? Tell that to Ben Shao. Ben Shao has always been protective of women. What he hates the most is men bullying women. I'm a romantic and elegant young gentleman. Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and chuckled softly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. As soon as he finished speaking, he leaned forward slightly and pouted his lip. He was about to kiss the woman in the black dress. Hooligan! Lecher! Bang! Bang! War! Suddenly, before Wang Kai could succeed, he heard two delicate cries. Immediately, his back and chest seemed to have suffered a heavy blow at the same time. He was directly pushed and sent flying high into the sky. He spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Plop! Wang Kai's body fell heavily to the ground. His eyes quickly scanned the surroundings. He raised his hand and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He scolded sternly, "Where are the hooligans? Come out quickly. Ben Shao wants to enforce justice on behalf of beauty." However, in the attic it was so quiet that one could hear a pin drop. Even Wang Kai felt extremely awkward. He couldn't help but rub his nose and smile as he looked at the two women in front of him. Seeing that they were looking at him with a look of disdain, he felt even more awkward. He had never imagined that this spiritual girl would be so fast. In less than a dozen breaths, she had already arrived at the Holy Maiden Peak. Furthermore, looking at the scenery outside and inside the attic, she had already reached the peak of the Holy Maiden Peak. "Little sister Qingqing, who is she? Why did you capture her and bring her here?" Yunshi's eyes flashed and a look of sadness flashed past. She spoke weakly and turned to sit on a chair by the window. That beautiful side profile, as well as that figure that could mesmerize tens of thousands of experts, looked so heart-wrenching at this moment. When a person's beauty reached a certain level, one could not help but admire it. Similarly, when a person's sadness created an atmosphere, one could not help but empathize with her. Even Wang Kai, who had never cultivated his state of mind, felt his heart skip a beat at this moment. It was as if a string had been touched. "Big Sister Yunshi, this bastard's origin is unknown. I suspect that he is from some force or a bounty killer who secretly sneaked into the sky-reaching church." Guan Qingqing pursed her lips and said. As she spoke, she did not forget to glare fiercely at Wang Kai. Wang Kai curled the corner of his mouth when he saw her playful look. He did not bother to pay attention to her. At this moment, he was only thinking about how to escape. "Oh, then just kill him. Why did you bring him here?" She shook her head gently and said absent-mindedly. Seeing her looking out of the window in a daze, Wang Kai could not help but raise his eyebrows. He stood up and flashed to the front of the bed. He stretched his head and looked out. He asked in surprise, "Heavens! Ben Shao, what are you looking at? You are actually looking at a tortoise flying in the sky." "What? A tortoise flying in the sky? Where is it? Show me. Get lost." Bang! Suddenly, before Wang Kai could react, Guan Qingqing's eyes lit up and she shouted with interest. She even pushed Wang Kai to the side without mercy. She also stretched her head out and looked out of the window. However, in the end, she did not see anything. "Where is the tortoise flying? Big Sister Yunshi, do you see it?" Guan Qingqing was stunned. She carefully scanned the surroundings, but did not find anything strange. Hearing this, Yunshi shook her head gently and said with a sigh, "You are just too silly. You have cultivated for more than 80 years, but you still have the temperament of a child. I have lived in this Holy Maiden Peak for more than 100 years. When have I ever seen a tortoise flying?" Whoosh! As soon as these words came out, Guan Qingqing's pretty face immediately turned red. She immediately turned around and glared at Wang Kai. She gritted her teeth and scolded angrily, "Bastard, how dare you play tricks on me? Haha, who played tricks on you? Who do you think you are? It is obviously you who are very stupid, okay? Ben Shao has already said that you are a fool. Until now, you still do not believe him. There are only 3 people here, and only you believe him. What does this mean?" Wang Kai shrugged and said with a casual smile. However, Wang Kai became more and more surprised. Just now, he had intentionally rushed to her side, but she did not have any strange reaction. What exactly did this holy maiden Yunshi experience? She actually looked as if she was indifferent to everything. That sorrowful aura continued to surround her. Chapter 639. Guan Qingqing was so angry that she raised her slender arm and was about to reprimand him, but she was interrupted by Saintess Yunxi. Qingqing, he is not a bounty killer, nor is he a spy planted in the sky-reaching church by other forces. He is a new disciple who just came from the mortal world today and was personally brought into the outer sanctum by Elder Ju Yun. Yunxi said softly. Her eyes were still looking out of the window at the clouds, as if she was indifferent to everything in the world. Looking at her feeble and sorrowful appearance and her seemingly know-it-all manner of speech, Wang Kaisan was a little surprised. He could only say that she was indeed the saintess of the sky-reaching church. Her knowledge was indeed accurate. Compared to this spiritual lady, she was many times better. How is this possible? He clearly said that I have divine thoughts in my Taoist mark. I don't know what kind of secret method he used to lift the 1,000 Autumns King Cauldron. Guan Qingqing suddenly pouted and stared at Wang Kai unwillingly. However, Guan Qingqing could not refute Saintess Yunxi's words. Or rather, she had completely believed that Wang Kai was not a person who would harm the sky-reaching church. In Guan Qingqing's view, even though Saintess Yunxi seemed to be indifferent to worldly affairs, she was very shrewd. Moreover, the news of the Saintess Peak was widely spread. Even though Saintess Yunxi did not go out of the Saintess Peak, she knew a lot of news about the outside world and the sky-reaching church. Of course, Wang Kai did not know these secrets. A person who seemed to be indifferent to everything had such ability. Saintess Yunxi, the man you like should be a playboy, right? He has been fooling around outside. In order to keep an eye on him, you have secretly planted a lot of spies everywhere, right? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and could not help but touch his nose and ask with a surprised expression. With a sad face and sad eyes, it was obvious that she was hurt by love. In addition to this know-it-all ability, Wang Kai's guess was not wrong. However, when Saintess Yunxi heard this, her body froze. Seeing this scene, Wang Kai's expression suddenly froze. He couldn't help but say in shock, "Damn, it really didn't work? Shut up, you bastard." Before big sister Yunxi started cultivating, she was engaged to a man in a mortal kingdom. However, before they were married, Elder Su Yun took a fancy to her and took her as his disciple. Now that over 100 years have passed, I'm afraid that mortal has already. As Guan Qingqing spoke, her eyes were filled with sorrow. Obviously, Guan Qingqing also felt sorry for Saintess Yunxi. There was a saying in the world that lovers would eventually find their way together. However, in the world of cultivation, there were not many who could truly be together. Aren't you the one who should shut up? You clearly said more than Ben Shao, but fortunately, you didn't get married. Otherwise, wouldn't it be a pity? No, damn, why did Elder Su Yun take a liking to you? Wang Kai frowned and asked with a worried expression. Swoosh. When Saintess Yunxi heard this, a cold light flashed in her eyes. She said in a rather cold tone, Qingqing didn't kill you directly because there are few disciples in the sky-reaching school. However, I don't care about the life and death of the sky-reaching school. Get out of the mountain quickly. Big sister Yunxi is right. Get out of the mountain immediately. Seeing that you chose the sky-reaching school, I will let you go. Also, Elder Su Yun took a fancy to big sister Yunxi's cultivation talent. Even if we don't kill a filthy bastard like you, you won't last long. Guan Qingqing also pursed her lips tightly and snorted in an unfriendly tone. When Wang Kai heard this, he immediately frowned and could not help but shrug. He pretended to look lonely and experienced as he shook his head and sighed. Alas, what is love in this world? It's simply a matter of life and death. As his voice faded, Wang Kai walked down the stairs with his lonely back and a melancholy aura spreading from him. What is love in this world? It's simply a matter of life and death. Saintess Yunxi was stunned. She could not help but look at Wang Kai's lonely back and suddenly said, Wait, do you know how to compose poems? It really works. Hearing this, Wang Kai's footsteps paused. His face was full of pride. He immediately turned around, shook his head sadly, and sighed, "Haha, it's just a poem. I used to compose so many poems, but now… Sigh, let's not talk about it. I wonder if Saintess Yunshi has anything else to say?" "Qingqing, you can go back first." However, Saintess Yunshi did not say much. Instead, she looked at Guan Qingqing and directly asked her to leave. This situation caused Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes to be stunned. Her delicate body stiffened as she looked at Saintess Yunshi and then at Wang Kai. What's going on? However, in the end, Guan Qingqing did not get a satisfactory answer. She could only lower her head and pout. She looked unhappy and wronged as she left. Hee, looks like she wants to be alone with me. TSK. Ben Xiao said earlier that with Ben Xiao's literary talent and handsome appearance, he could easily win over any beautiful woman. Wang Kai still looked sad, but in his heart, he was very proud. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to Grade 9 Heavenly Origin stage. You're good at pretending. Your ability to adapt is also very good. I wonder what level your cultivation is at? Saintess Yunshi asked flatly. Whoosh. Hearing these words and seeing Saintess Yunshi's indifferent look, Wang Kai's face stiffened. He could no longer maintain his sad expression. What's going on? At the same time, Guan Qingqing was walking on the mountain path of Saintess Peak. She pursed her lips and kicked the stones with every step she took. Humph, what's wrong with Sister Yunshi? Why did she leave that bastard alone? Could it be that she has been lonely for too long and wants to… This. Guan Qingqing's face turned red as she thought about it. It was as if she was bleeding. Qingqing, when did you come to Saintess Peak? Suddenly, as a voice sounded, Guan Qingqing, who was so frightened that her mind was in a mess, exclaimed, "Ah, who? Yao Guang, holy son, you scared me." Guan Qingqing patted her chest and said with a pale face. At the foot of the mountain path, there was a handsome young man slowly walking up. The young man was wearing a white robe. He was handsome and had a strong body. He did look extraordinary. Behind his head, there was a golden halo of light that was shining brightly and rotating slowly. You haven't left Spiritual Maiden Peak for 3 years. Now that you are here, is it because you have successfully broken through to the next level? Congratulations. Yao Guang, holy son, smiled and nodded. Chapter 640. Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes narrowed. She clasped her hands behind her back, shook her head, and snorted proudly. Well, compared to you, I should be about the same, or even stronger. Do you want to have a fight? Whoosh. As soon as she said that, the wavering light saint's eyes flickered. He glanced at her indifferently and smiled faintly. It's not too late to fight when the sect leader fights. As soon as he finished speaking, the wavering light saint nodded gently and smiled. He leisurely stepped up the Holy Maiden Peak. Seeing this, Guan Qingqing was extremely disdainful. She waved her small fists from behind and snorted coldly. At that time, I will make it difficult for you, ah! Suddenly, Guan Qingqing was shocked. She just remembered that the Holy Maiden Yunshi was alone with Wang Kai in a room. Now they might be doing something. If the wavering light saint met them, it did not matter whether Wang Kai lived or died. But the Holy Maiden Yunshi, thinking of this, Guan Qingqing hurriedly moved her feet and used all her strength to block the wavering light saint halfway up the mountain. Wait, you are not allowed to go up. Guan Qingqing opened her arms. Her pretty face was cold, and her eyes were full of determination. The wavering light saint frowned and looked at Guan Qingqing with some displeasure. He said faintly, "Why are you not allowing me to go up? No means no. What nonsense are you talking about? If you want to go up, you have to defeat me." Guan Qingqing's beautiful eyes were full of fighting spirit as she snorted coldly. In her heart, she cursed the wavering light saint countless times. Why couldn't he come at a better time? He just had to come when Yunxi was lonely for a long time and wanted to do something. Now she had to block him here. Boring, the wavering light saint said faintly. He tapped his feet lightly, and his figure suddenly disappeared before Guan Qingqing's eyes. By the time Guan Qingqing came back to her senses, the Alcade sage had already appeared halfway up the mountain. Furthermore, every step he took seemed to be equivalent to 100 steps. He was like an illusion and unpredictable. Coward. Do you really think I can't do anything to you? Whoosh. Guan Qingqing clenched her silver teeth and took out the copper cauldron. Then, she directly threw it at the wavering light saint. Guan Qingqing, you've gone too far. Suddenly, the Alcade sage paused and turned around to block the attack. The golden halo behind his head spun rapidly and emitted a glaring light. Bang! Buzz! The copper cauldron was effortlessly blocked in midair by the Alcade sage's palm strike. He couldn't even make the Alcade saint take half a step back. Seeing this scene, Guan Qingqing frowned and couldn't help but purse her lips. She snorted inwardly. Looks like the Alcade saint has made another breakthrough. Damn it, how am I supposed to stop him? Sister Yunxi, you have to hurry. Guan Qingqing, what do you want? Even if I have to fight with you sooner or later, before that, the Saint Peak and Spirit Maiden Peak have always minded their own business. What's more, Saintess Yunxi will become my Tao companion sooner or later. What are you trying to do by stopping me time and time again? The Alcade saint said coldly. No matter how good his temper was, he was still infuriated by being stopped. However, Guan Qingqing was merciless. She immediately shouted angrily and flipped in the air. She raised her hand to summon the copper cauldron back and used all her cultivation to throw it out again. Buzz! The bronze cauldron flashed brightly, and waves of terrifying will of Tao that was above the pressure swept down. Qingqing, stop it! Bang! Ding dong! Before the Alcade saint's son could block it, a figure appeared in the air. The figure raised his hand and caught the copper cauldron. It was a young man in a blue robe. He had blue hair and blue eyes. His handsome appearance revealed a sense of gentleness and gave people a feeling of amiability. Big bastard Emokong, how dare you find fault with me? Seeing the blue-haired young man, Guan Qingqing was so angry that her body trembled. She clenched her teeth and raised her arm to point at Emokong Lingzi. Haha, I didn't expect junior brother Emokong to also have a breakthrough. Congratulations. The Alcade saint squinted his eyes and smiled. In response, Emokong Lingzi turned around and cupped his fist. He smiled and said in a gentle tone, Senior brother, I'm sorry. Compared to senior brother, I'm still lacking. The Yao Guang holy son gently nodded as a response. Then, he put his hands behind his back and walked 100 steps to the top of the mountain. Emokong, are you an idiot? Sister Yunxi is now. You bad thing. Guan Qingqing clenched her silver teeth and cursed in a manner that was exasperated at his failure to meet her expectations. Swoosh. As soon as she finished speaking, Guan Qingqing twisted her body and chased after him like the wind. Seeing this, Mokong Lingzi was startled. He frowned with some doubt, then hurriedly followed from behind. At first, he thought that there was a conflict between Guan Qingqing and the Alcade saint. Now, it seemed that this was not the case. At the same time, in the pavilion on the peak, Wang Kai sat on a chair with his legs crossed. He smiled indifferently and said, So, you want Ben Shao to go to the romantic floor to see the lady boss and ask some questions? He thought that Saintess Yunxi must have been fascinated by his literary talent, but in the end, she just wanted to use him to do things for her. What he wanted to do was to sneak into the romantic floor and find out some things from the lady boss. Yes, I think that I'm well informed and no one in the Sky Reaching School can compare to me. However, compared to the lady boss of the romantic floor, I'm still lacking. There's one thing that only she knows. Saintess Yunshi leaned on the bed and looked at the clouds, her voice full of uncertainty. Seeing this, the corner of Wang Kai's mouth suddenly twitched. He couldn't help but shrug and say in a rather speechless manner, "Even you aren't sure if that lady boss can help you, whoosh." However, before Wang Kai could finish speaking, Saintess Yunshi interrupted him with a determined look in her eyes. "Whether there is hope or not, I have to try. I heard that the lady boss has always been fond of poems and songs. She takes extra care of those with literary talent. With your ability to act according to circumstances, it shouldn't be difficult for you to sneak into the romantic floor and be a waiter," Saintess Yunshi said with a sigh. Sneaking into the romantic floor, and being a waiter? What the hell was that? Wang Kai's face darkened when he heard this. He immediately stood up and waved his arm. He said proudly, "That's impossible. With this young master's literary talent and extraordinary appearance, if I want to do something, I'd rather be a boss. Moreover, why would Ben Shao agree to it? Since you are so awesome, why don't you go yourself? You can be a maid who serves tea and water." Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. You have no choice. Saintess Yunshi said coldly. No, he has a choice. Whoosh. Before Wang Kai could reply, an indifferent voice sounded in the attic. In an instant, the Alcade Saint walked into the attic. Chapter 641. Holy Son Yao Guang, your cultivation has advanced to the middle level of Heavenly Lord. You don't need to report your arrival to the Holy Maiden Peak, right? Holy Maiden Yunshi slowly turned around and glanced at him with displeasure. Yao Guang Saint? Middle grade Heavenly Lord? Could it be that the realm above the Heavenly King was the Heavenly Lord? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes slightly. The realms he knew were the Heavenly Soldier Realm, Heavenly General Realm, and Heavenly Origin Realm in the lower three heavens. Above the Heavenly Origin Realm was the middle three heavens, which was the so-called Heavenly King Realm. If the realm above the Heavenly King was the Heavenly Lord, then what realm would it be? Moreover, this Yao Guang Saint was a middle-grade Heavenly Lord. Didn't this mean that he was a 4th grade, 5th grade or 6th grade Heavenly Lord? This was interesting. Haha, in the history of the sky-reaching sect, the Saint, Saintess, Divine Son, Divine Daughter, Spiritual Son, and Spiritual Daughter have all become cultivation companions after the sect leader battle. You and I, whoosh! Shut your anus! Before the Alcade sage could finish speaking, Wang Kai, who was at the side, couldn't bear to listen any longer. Black lines appeared on his forehead as he interrupted. Who are you? There is no place for you here, and there is nothing for you to do here. Leave. The Alcade Saint frowned as a cold glint flashed in his eyes. As the Saint of the Sky-reaching sect, he was interrupted by an unknown hothead when he was talking to his beloved Saintess. One could imagine how he felt. Retreat, your grandpa, retreat! What did you say just now? It's fine if the Saint, Saintess, Spiritual Son, and Spiritual Daughter want to become cultivation companions, but even the Divine Son and Divine Daughter want to become cultivation companions? F*CKU. How dare you not leave any of them to Ben Shao? How many heads did you bring with you today? Wang Kai scolded angrily with a dark face and blue veins on his forehead. It was simply too infuriating. It was fine if the Spiritual Daughter, Guan Qingqing, was not his. After all, that little girl was a little stupid. As for Saintess Yunshi, it was fine if she wasn't his. After all, this little girl's heart was filled with sorrow, and it would be difficult for her to calm down. In this world, no man would be willing to let the woman he liked think about another man all the time. The one who couldn't stand it the most was the goddess. The Spirit Lady and the Holy Maiden were already gone, and now, even the goddess was also gone? The purpose of coming here was to capture her heart. How could Wang Kai allow such a thing to happen? You want to become Tao companions with the goddess? Not only was the Alcade saint stunned for a few seconds, but even the sorrowful Yunshi saintess was stunned. He couldn't believe that an outer disciple who had just entered the sky-reaching school dared to say that he wanted to marry the goddess. And from the looks of it, he seemed to be in the right. It was as though the goddess was his woman. What? Can't I? I'm not afraid to tell you clearly. Listen carefully, kid. Ben Shao is the handsome young man who has destroyed the way of the heavens, had sex with the king of hell, and slept with the princess of the dragon tribe in the sea. People in the Jianghu call me the omnipotent young man. They are talking about me. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and smiled proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have gained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. The heavens had destroyed the way of the heavens, had sex with the king of hell, had sex with the princess of the dragon tribe in the sea. Omnipotent, whoosh! The Alcade saint's mouth twitched when he heard those words. He looked at Wang Kai in disbelief and opened his mouth. He didn't know what to say. He was really stunned by Wang Kai's bragging. However, Saintess Yunshi, who was sitting by the window, covered her mouth and giggled. Although there was still sadness in her beautiful eyes, she looked beautiful when she giggled. She was so beautiful that it touched a string in Wang Kai's heart. No, Ben Shao has decided. I want the divine lady and the saintess. As for the spiritual lady cough, you can have her if you like. Wang Kai came back to his senses and smiled as he touched his chin. Whoosh! Saintess Yunshi's face stiffened when she heard that. She glanced at Wang Kai indifferently and turned around to look out of the window again. Bastard! What did you say? I'm the spiritual lady. Whoever likes her can have her. Suddenly, before the Alcade saint's son could get angry, an angry rebuke came from outside. Very quickly, a fragrant wind blew. The spiritual lady, Guan Qingqing, appeared in front of Wang Kai. She clenched her small fists and gritted her teeth as she said, I dare you to say that again. Whoosh! At the same time, the spiritual son, Mo Kong, also appeared in the pavilion. He looked at Wang Kai with amazement and a smile on his face. Apparently, he had heard what Wang Kai had said just now. For Guan Qingqing, who had always been arrogant in the sky-reaching sect, this was undoubtedly the biggest blow. Ben Shao was just joking. Who wouldn't like such an otherworldly beauty like spiritual lady Qingqing? If it weren't for my lowly status, I would have rushed up and beaten you up. Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and laughed dryly. He felt a chill in his heart. He didn't expect that the person in question would hear it. You still want to beat me up? Guan Qingqing stared at him with her beautiful eyes and waved her small fists. She wanted to hit Wang Kai. Sister, stop fooling around. Senior Sister Yunshi, long time no see. Mo Kong suddenly interrupted. He looked at Wang Kai with admiration in his eyes, then turned to Saintess Yunshi, who was in front of the window, and cupped his fists to greet her. Today is really a good day. Spiritual sons, spiritual daughters, and holy sons are all gathered at Saintess Peak. If Su Ju and Xia Xinyan also come, wouldn't it be? Saintess Yunshi nodded her head, but she paused halfway through her words. On the side, Mo Kong Lingzi, spiritual lady Guan Qingqing, and holy son Yao Guang all looked outside the pavilion. I heard that junior sister Qingqing and junior brother Mo Kong have come out of seclusion. Senior brother is here to congratulate you. Whoosh! As a voice filled with coldness sounded, a red-robed young man appeared in the pavilion. The young man wore a silver mask on his face, and his eyes flickered with a demonic bloody light. It was full of ruthlessness. At his waist, there was a long sword without a scabbard. The blade was stained with blood, and there was even blood flowing from it. A pungent smell instantly filled the pavilion. Divine Son, Su Ju. As soon as this person appeared, Holy Son Yao Guang, Saintess Yunshi, Makong Lingzi, and spiritual Lady Guan Qingqing all frowned. Their eyes were filled with fear and disgust. TSK, who is this guy? His outfit and equipment are awesome. His clothes are already stained with blood. His long sword is dripping with blood. His whole body is stained with the smell of blood. At first glance, you can tell that he is a homicidal maniac. What a ruthless person! Wang Kai's eyebrows instantly twisted. His expression was rather disdainful as he coldly laughed. After his words fell, he shrugged his shoulders and crossed his legs. With an unfriendly gaze, he said, "Brat, have you obtained this young master's permission to act so pretentious?" Chapter 642. Swish. Su Ju's body froze when he heard this, and he coldly glanced at Wang Kai. He flipped his hand and waved his sword, slashing out a red sword beam through the air, heading straight for Wang Kai's heart. Not good, Saintess Yunxi looked worried. Although she was not familiar with Wang Kai was still useful to her. Unfortunately, it was already too late for him to stop it at this critical moment. Even if Guan Qingqing wanted to help, she wouldn't be able to come in time. Absolute Rebound Divine Shield. Wang Kai's expression changed drastically, and he immediately urged his mind instructs, in a second, to shout. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the Absolute Rebound Divine Shield, consuming 500 bragging points. Buzz. Suddenly, just as Wang Kai was about to be cut in half by the blood-colored sword Qi, a golden light barrier appeared around his body. Clang! Crack! Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh! The Absolute Reflection Divine Shield shattered under the slash of the sword aura, and the sword aura bounced back. Such a scene shocked Su Ju Divine Son so much that his pupils shrank. He hurriedly waved his sword to block. Although he successfully offset the sword Qi, he was also forced to retreat more than 10 steps. Who are you? Su Ju stabilized his body and stared at Wang Kai with killing intent. He tightly gripped his sword, and his heart was filled with fear. To be able to easily block the sword Qi and rebound it back several times stronger, such a cultivation was definitely not weaker than the Heavenly Monarch realm. Moreover, although the defensive circle Wang Kai had displayed had been shattered, his body was still very stable. This proved that Wang Kai definitely had some strength left. As for Su Ju Divine Son, he was able to shatter the sword Qi that was repelled back, so he also had some strength left. Regarding this, Su Ju Divine Son was naturally very clear. For a moment, he was also unable to grasp Wang Kai's true cultivation. Even if they fought and won in the end, it would definitely be a Pyrrhic victory. For Divine Son Su Ju, who was about to participate in the sect leader battle, he was naturally unwilling to do so. Little did she know that Wang Kai was even more speechless at this moment. Once the Absolute Rebound Divine Shield was used, it would definitely injure the enemy. But this time, he failed. Looks like he didn't use his full strength in that attack. Even if the sword Qi that bounces back is a few times stronger, it can only match his full strength. Damn, no wonder they are from Tianzhou. Each one is stronger than the last. Wang Kai cursed in his heart, but on the surface, he maintained an inscrutable expression. Haha, Ben Shao is just a passerby in the world of mortals. What is a mere name worth mentioning? Sigh, young man, for your own safety, it's best that you don't inquire about Ben Shao's name. Otherwise, once you hear it, you'll be shattered into pieces. Wang Kai shook his head and sighed. After he finished speaking, he turned around, walked to a chair, and sat down in an extremely languid manner. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've obtained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Such a scene immediately caused Divine Son Su Ju to frown. His eyes were filled with bewilderment. The palm that was holding the sword slightly shook a few times, but he still chose to give up on attacking from behind. Since Wang Kai dared to leave his back to him so easily, It proved that he had absolute confidence in dealing with his sudden attack. Just the act of turning around had already caused Divine Son Su-ju to look at Wang Kai even more highly. The fear in his heart also became even more intense. At the same time, Holy Son Yao Guang, Holy Maiden Yunxi, Makong Lingzi, and Guan Qingqing were also looking at Wang Kai with eyes full of bewilderment. They couldn't believe that he was actually so strong. The one who was most puzzled was Guan Qingqing. She had clearly been captured by him and brought to Holy Maiden Peak. She didn't even have the strength to resist. Now, she was actually so powerful? Could it be that he intentionally lost to her so that she could bring him to Holy Maiden Peak? This despicable and damned fellow! Guan Qingqing immediately clenched her teeth and secretly cursed Wang Kai in her heart. She completely thought that Wang Kai had lost to her on purpose. Little did they know that Wang Kai was just pretending to be tough and deliberately mystifying things. I just heard that you want to become Tao companions with the goddess. Is this true? Just as the space seemed to be oppressive, Divine Son Su-ju suddenly spoke, his eyes filled with coldness as he stared at Wang Kai. Hearing this, Wang Kai's heart skipped a beat. He pretended to be calm as he looked at Divine Son Su-ju. He gently nodded and said with a faint smile, "That's right, Benshao has yearned for the heavenly school's goddess for a long time. Her gentleness, her beauty, and even her person, they were all born for Benshao. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've obtained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points." Her beauty was not fake, but her gentleness. How could he say it? Such words immediately caused Divine Son Su-ju to be startled. The faces of Holy Son Yao Guang and the others also stiffened. Especially spiritual maiden Guan Qingqing, her red lips curled up. However, their expressions caused Wang Kai to raise his eyebrows. Could it be that she's not gentle at all? Is she a tigress? F***ck. But now that he had said it, it was impossible to take it back. Thinking of this, Wang Kai flicked his clothes and said with a faint smile, "It's normal that you don't understand her. Benshao has been with her for thousands of nights. Her gentleness will naturally only be left for Benshao. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've obtained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points." Swish. Hearing this, Divine Son Su-ju's pupils constricted. He stared at Wang Kai for a long time before coldly saying, "Since that's the case, why don't you come with me to the God Sun Peak? This Son of God has something to discuss with my dear friend." Brother, dear friend, the corner of Wang Kai's mouth twitched when he heard this. He casually glanced at Su-ju. Looking at his appearance, if he really went to the God Sun Peak, there might be some trap waiting for him. There's no need. Benshao has never liked to interact with people with strong killing intent. Well, to put it bluntly, Benshao doesn't like you. You're not qualified. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders, his expression full of disdain as he sneered. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've obtained 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Not qualified. I don't like you. Swish. Hearing this, Divine Son Su-ju's gaze immediately turned sharp. His killing intent was not concealed in the slightest. However, in the end, he did not make a move. If he were to make a move against an expert of unknown cultivation level before the sect leader battle, it would definitely affect the outcome of the sect leader battle. Little did he know that Wang Kai's actions were just to be high profile. Since he was pretending to be awesome, he had to pretend to be more decent, arrogant, and lawless. The more it was like this, the more others feared you. The more they couldn't grasp you. If you come to the God Sun Peak as a guest, this Son of God has a way to help you and Goddess Yasinyan achieve a good thing. Of course, you need to agree to this Son of God's condition. As for what it is, let's talk about it when you come. Su-ju's gaze turned as he secretly transmitted a few words. Then, he suddenly turned around and stepped into the air. Spirit Child Peak, 47 Spirit Servants, Spirit Maiden Peak, 23 Spirit Servants, have all died under the sword of this Son of God. In this way, I would like to congratulate the two of you on successfully coming out of seclusion. Swish. As Su Ju's voice slowly sounded out, the expressions of Makong Lingzi and Guan Qingqing changed greatly. Chapter 643. Sister Yunxi, I'll go back first, Guan Qingqing said with a pale face. Then, she turned around and left the Holy Maiden Peak in a hurry. Similarly, Makong Lingzi's eyes were dark. He cupped his fists towards Yunxi Holy Maiden and Yaoguang Holy Sun, then nodded towards Wang Kai and left in a hurry. Regarding the words spoken by Su Ju, the two of them were clearly extremely angry and worried. Hee, it seems that Su Ju is very dissatisfied with the breakthrough of the siblings. The Yaoguang Holy Sun narrowed his eyes and smiled coldly. Brother and sister? Wang Kai was startled when he heard this. He couldn't help but rub his nose and feel speechless. He never thought that Guan Qingqing and Mo Kong were actually siblings. Didn't they say that the spirit sons and spirit daughters were going to become Tao companions? Could it be, are all the people of the Tianzhou so open-minded? Wang Kai grinned and said with a speechless expression. Swish. Hearing this, the Yaoguang Holy Sun and Yunxi Holy Maiden naturally guessed what Wang Kai was thinking. It's true that the spirit sons and spirit daughters, holy sons and holy daughters, as well as the divine sons and spirit daughters, want to become Tao companions, but it's not inevitable. If brother has the idea, you can do it together with the spirit daughters. Yaoguang Holy Sun, there's nothing else for you to do here. You should leave quickly. Before the Yaoguang Holy Sun could finish his words, Yunxi, who was by the window, interrupted him. She even mercilessly ordered him to leave on the spot. Such a situation caused the Yaoguang Holy Sun's expression to stiffen. His eyes were full of affection as he looked at Yunxi. He gently nodded and smiled. If you want this brother to go to the romantic floor, Yunxi, you need to inform Elder Su Yun in advance. Of course, I can help you with this. Swish. As soon as these words were spoken, Wang Kai frowned. Just now, the Yaoguang Holy Sun had the attitude of not allowing him to go to the romantic floor. Now, he was actually willing to help? What was he planning? At the same time, Yunxi Saintess was also very surprised. She could not help but turn around and look at the Yaoguang Saint in confusion. She said indifferently, "What do you want?" Obviously, Yunxi Saintess did not trust the Alcade Saint. Haha, Yunxi, don't misunderstand. Although Elder Su Yun is your master, you have always held a grudge against Elder Su Yun because of what happened in the mortal world. You have not contacted him for many years. In such a situation, even if you go and beg him, he might not agree, the Alcade Saint said with a soft laugh. Whoosh. Hearing this, Wang Kai couldn't help but grin. Wasn't this implying that he was helping him? His flirting skills weren't that great. No need. If you want to send him out of the sky-reaching school, you don't need to inform Elder Su Yun. Yaoguang Holy Sun, you can leave now. Saintess Yunxi shook her head and said indifferently. She looked at the clouds and mountains outside the window. Her tone was indisputable. Seeing this, the Yaoguang Holy Sun was not angered. Instead, he gently smiled and turned to Wang Kai, clasping his fists and saying goodbye. Tisk tsk. It seems that Ben Shao is too awesome. He is so awesome that even the heavens and earth will pale in comparison. Wang Kai smacked his lips and smiled proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the first grade Heavenly King realm. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the 4th grade. Host, Wang Kai profession, Heavenly Martial Artist realm, First grade Heavenly King Taoist technique. Heavenly Way superpowers. Luck deprivation skill, great summoning skill equipment, ever-changing fan heavenly power, 4th grade astral origin points, 0 physique, invulnerable guardian beasts, none bragging points, 24400 experience, 08000000. Hearing the notification, Wang Kai's expression suddenly froze. His eyes were filled with pleasant surprise as he glanced at it. Then, he urged his mind to close it. Even though his experience had increased by another 100,000, Wang Kai was still incomparably happy. At the very least, the power of the heavens had reached the 4th level, and his cultivation had reached the Heavenly King realm. A Heavenly King stage powerhouse could be considered one of the top powerhouses in the inner sect. Hearing Wang Kai's boasting and seeing his deep joy, Holy Maiden Yunshi couldn't help but shake her head and laugh. Although I don't know what method you used to block Su Ju's sword slash, your true cultivation should only be at the sky origin stage. Shua. Hearing this, Wang Kai's eyes narrowed. It seemed that this Holy Maiden's information about him only stopped at the time before he went to the Spirit Maiden Peak. In the past, he was at the sky origin stage. Now, he was a heavenly king. But even so, Wang Kai admitted that he was definitely not a match for Holy Maiden Yunshi. It was not impossible to defeat her, but he would have to pay a price. In Wang Kai's opinion, there was no need to do so. Heavenly origin stage? Oh, then what realm is Ben Shao at now? Wang Kai shrugged and casually waved his hand. Suddenly, an extremely terrifying pressure swept out, accompanied by the Tao intent of the Heavenly Tao. Heavenly King stage? Holy Maiden Yunshi's beautiful eyes were stunned as she looked at Wang Kai in disbelief. He was already clear about the Tao intent. But this Heavenly King stage? What was going on? Could it be that he was really an expert who didn't lose to a heavenly monarch? I was already very surprised when you displayed your Tao intent in the outer sect. I didn't expect that your cultivation level is not only at the heavenly origin stage. Sigh, it seems that I can't force you to help me this time. You can leave. Holy Maiden Yunshi shook her head and sighed. She weakly turned her head and laid on the windowsill, looking outside in a daze. Patter! Wang Kai flipped his hand and took out his folding fan. He held it in front of his chest and gently waved it. He said with a playful smile, actually, if you want to make Ben Shao help you, you don't have to force him. You can use other methods. Other methods? Whoosh. Hearing this, Holy Maiden Yunshi was stunned. She couldn't help but turn around and stare at Wang Kai with her beautiful eyes. She asked softly, "What do you want? Tao techniques or heavenly techniques?" Tao techniques? Heavenly techniques? What's a heavenly techniques? Wang Kai was stunned. He had never heard of heavenly techniques since he came to Tianzhou. He knew about Tao techniques. You don't know about heavenly techniques? Then how did you get the 5th scroll of the heavenly Tao technique? Holy Maiden Yunshi's red lips parted slightly. She felt that Wang Kai was too unpredictable. He was very mysterious. Heavenly Tao technique. Right, Ben Shao still has 9 levels of the heavenly Tao technique. If you want, Ben Shao can give it to you and help you. However, you should think of a condition that will satisfy Ben Shao. Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and said with a playful smile. As for the heavenly techniques, Wang Kai didn't care at all. He just needed to inform the system later. The most important thing now was to pick up girls. Since he was already here, how could he come here for nothing? Was that in line with Wang Kai's character? Chapter 644. 9 Levels of the Heavenly Tao Technique. Upon hearing this, Saintess Yunshi's beautiful eyes flashed. She had thought that Wang Kai had only learned the 5th level of the Heavenly Tao Technique from somewhere. Now, she heard that he had mastered 9 levels. In the end, Saintess Yunshi was only a little surprised. Saintess Yunshi shook her head and sighed. The heavenly way is indeed very tempting, but what I want is not the way, nor a high cultivation level. As long as you agree to help me, you can name any conditions you want. Saintess Yunshi shook her head and sighed. Looking at her seemingly weak appearance, Wang Kai was speechless. Wasn't it just parting with her lover? Did she have to go to this extent? Moreover, from what Guan Qingqing had said, Saintess Yunshi and that ordinary man were not married. They were only engaged. Since they were not officially together, why did she have to think about him day and night? Haha, Ben Shao has always thought of himself as a Casanova. However, Ben Shao really can't understand your question. Moreover, the condition that Ben Shao is about to name can indeed help you. However, whether you agree to it or not is another matter. Wang Kai shrugged and smiled casually. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Casanova? When Holy Daughter Yunshi heard Wang Kai's words, she shook her head and laughed involuntarily. Instead, she became interested in Wang Kai's offer to help her. What condition? Tell me about it. Saintess Yunshi asked curiously. Clatter. Wang Kai flipped his hand and opened the folding fan. He leaned back on the chair and crossed his legs. With a playful smile, he said, It's very simple. Accompany this young master. Whoosh! Before Wang Kai could finish speaking, Saintess Yunshi suddenly interrupted him. You want me? Saintess Yunshi's beautiful eyes narrowed. She said without any emotion on her face. You're so direct? Wang Kai was stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. He gently waved his fan and said, This young master really wants you. As the saying goes, a person who is not romantic is a waste of youth. A man who doesn't enter a cave is not a gentleman. For a gentleman like this young master, how could he not have such thoughts? Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. A gentleman. Was this something that a gentleman would say? Saintess Yunshi was disdainful. A hint of disgust appeared in her eyes. However, she was surprised by Wang Kai's honesty. But it was just a surprise. A frank man was indeed good, but if he used it in the wrong place, it would have negative effects. It's just a body. If you want it, I can give it to you. But you have to finish what I asked you to do first, Saintess Yunshi said, shaking her head. Damn. She actually agreed. Wang Kai suddenly frowned. What he was going to say just now was not to directly ask her to give up her body. But when she interrupted him, the result was very direct. Ahem, that was not what Ben Shao wanted to say. Although that was Ben Shao's ultimate goal, we have to follow Ben Shao's script. You can't be so open. Ben Shao has been cultivating for so long and has maintained his pure and innocent body. How can he be so easily taken advantage of by you? Wang Kai shrugged and said with a look of disdain, Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. I'm open? Saintess Yunshi was stunned when she heard this. She looked at Wang Kai in disbelief. She had never thought that a man could be so shameless. Pure and innocent? Pure and innocent? Taken advantage of. Saintess Yunshi was dumbfounded by all the words he had said. What was even more unbearable was the preamble. Regardless of what he wanted to say, didn't he mean the pleasure between a man and a woman? That's right. If you are not open, how can you directly ask to do that with Ben Shao? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and said casually, Do that? Saintess Yunshi frowned and glanced at Wang Kai. She said softly, What do you want? Tell me. It's very simple. Accompany Ben Shao to the romantic floor. Take the opportunity to show you Ben Shao's position in the romantic floor. Haha, I'm not afraid to tell you that the real boss behind the romantic floor is Ben Shao. Wang Kai said proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. The real boss behind the romantic floor. Yunxi was speechless when she heard this. Even though she rarely got angry, at this moment, she was really enraged by his boasting. I can't agree to this condition. If I could leave the sky-reaching school, I wouldn't ask you to go to the romantic floor. Change your condition, Saintess Yunxi said softly. Can't leave the sky-reaching school? Hearing this, Wang Kai's eyes narrowed slightly. He secretly thought that it was fine to agree to her request, but if the matter was really done, what would he do if she regretted it? At that time, one would be a saintess, and the other would be an outer disciple. One would be a heavenly monarch, and the other would be a heavenly king. No matter what, it was impossible to get away with it. Thinking of this, Wang Kai had a plan. He waved his fan and smiled. Ben Shao won't help you if he doesn't have absolute confidence. Absolute confidence. Whoosh. Hearing this, Saintess Yunxi's body stiffened. She naturally understood what Wang Kai meant. You suspect that I will go back on my words? Saintess Yunxi said in a low voice. It was as if she hated this word. Wang Kai was startled when he saw this. He didn't know what was wrong with her. Previously she was still looking weak and sad, but now she was angry. No, Ben Shao just wants to collect some interest because you are so beautiful. Well, even if you go back on your words, Ben Shao won't lose anything. Wang Kai shrugged. His attitude was unquestionable. Buzz. Patter. Suddenly, Saintess Yunxi raised her hand and waved it. Under the attack of the will of the Wei, Wang Kai's body was swept out of the pavilion uncontrollably. He couldn't resist at all. I will only give you 3 days to think about it. If you agree, you can come to the Saintess Peak to find me. If you succeed, I won't let you down. Saintess Yunxi said indifferently. Hearing this, Wang Kai couldn't help but touch his nose. Now he somewhat believed her. Since she could do this, even if she gave him her body, she would be a corpse. What did she want to do? Boy, why don't you tell me what I want to know? What a good opportunity this is. Lord Cat transmitted his voice angrily. Wang Kai frowned when he heard this and said with a disdainful expression, Then wouldn't this young master be at a disadvantage? I just want to find out something. Don't forget that the Heavenly Reaching sect doesn't only have the Spiritual Maiden Peak and the Saintess Peak. There is also the Goddess Peak. The Goddess Peak. Cat Elder's breath caught in his throat. Kid, you're not talking in your sleep, are you? Do you really want to go to the Goddess Peak? If he couldn't even deal with the Spiritual Maiden and the Saintess, wouldn't he be courting death if he went to the Goddess Peak? Chapter 645. Patter. Wang Kai held the fan in his hand and gently patted his palm. He smiled casually and said, Big stupid cat, you have been with Ben Shao for so many years. Can't you see that the woman who is worthy of Ben Shao is usually the most awesome? Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Whoosh! Hearing this, Cat Lord was speechless. He could not understand what Wang Kai was afraid of. Maybe when he was in the 8 Barons, he was afraid of the safety of his family and friend. But now that he was in Tianzhou, there was nothing to be afraid of. Haha, to put it bluntly, only the most awesome goddess has the slightest bit of qualification for a woman worthy of this young master using my manly charms. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders, his face full of arrogance as he laughed. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Leave Saintess Peak quickly. Whoosh! Before Cat Lord could get angry, Saintess Yunxi, who was in the loft, could not help but ask him to leave. Wang Kai was really too good at bragging. No one could stand the torture to their ears and mind. Did you see that? TSK, we have only been apart for a short while, and you are already throwing a tantrum with Ben Shao. If I had known earlier, I would not have left Benshao. Why were you bragging just now? Wang Kai curled his lips and said disdainfully. Soon after, he hurriedly ran down the Saintess Peak. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Slap. In the loft, Saintess Yunshi was so angry that her body trembled. She raised her hand and slammed it on the windowsill. Looking at Wang Kai, who was running down the mountain, she opened her red lips and said, Despicable guy, are all the people in the lower world so despicable? Even Saintess Yunshi, who usually didn't like to get angry, forgot about her sadness at this moment. She was furious with Wang Kai. Humph! Look at Lord Cat. It's not that she can't bear to part with you. She just can't wait for you to leave Holy Maiden Peak. Also, she has the ability to act tough. If you act tough, you're just torturing her. Lord Cat sent a telepathic message in disdain. Whoosh! Hearing this, Wang Kai suddenly stopped in his tracks. He widened his eyes and said with a face full of disbelief, F***ck, big stupid cat, when did you become so evil? How could he say such words? You haven't learned any of Benshao's virtues all these years. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking through to the second stage of the Heavenly King realm. Virtue. You have virtues too. Cat Grandpa was speechless. If it weren't for the fact that he didn't want to reveal his identity and had to leave Wang Kai immediately, he wouldn't have listened to Wang Kai's bragging. At the foot of Holy Maiden Peak, Wang Kai had just reached the mountain gate when he was stopped by a group of disciples in black robes. Moreover, these disciples had the word Tian on their robes. A small number of disciples also had the word Tong. The weakest were all inner disciples, while the rest were all core disciples. Senior brother, did you just come from the Holy Maiden's place? Whoosh! Just as Wang Kai thought that there would be a fierce battle, these disciples, regardless of whether they were inner or core disciples, took the initiative to greet him. Furthermore, their appearances were all respectful and reverent. It was as if they had met their biological father. Wang Kai felt a chill run down his spine when he saw this. That's right. Do you know Benshao? Wang Kai frowned and asked with a surprised smile. Could it be that his name was so awesome that the core disciples were afraid of him? However, what they said next made Wang Kai instantly understand what was going on. No. Divine Son Su Ju and Holy Son Yao Guang both left a message. If they see a white-robed young man coming down, they must treat him well. That's right. Senior brother, are you thirsty now? Do you want to come to my cave for a cup of tea? 10,000 years old immortal tea. Scram, let senior brother come to my place. In my cave there are countless treasures. It's many times better than that bullshit immortal tea. In an instant, under Wang Kai's dumbfounded gaze, those disciples actually started arguing with each other. Their goal was to beg him to be a guest in their cave. Cough cough, Benshao still has important matters to attend to. I'm not afraid to tell you that Goddess Yasinyan has already set up a banquet on the Goddess Peak and is waiting for Benshao to come over. Goodbye. Wang Kai waved his hand and said impatiently. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Goddess Yasinyan invited him to a banquet. Swoosh! Such words instantly stunned all the disciples. Looking at Wang Kai's leisurely back, they couldn't help but look at each other and swallow a mouthful of saliva. As expected of the person that the Son of God and the Holy Son have to treat well. This card is awesome. Sigh, with the Son of God and the Holy Son paving the way for him, I'm afraid those people at the foot of the Goddess Peak won't be able to stop him. How strange. Why doesn't Son of God Su Ju pursue Goddess Ya? I don't know, but I heard that Son of God Su Ju cultivates the Tao of slaughter. If he wants to cultivate to the peak, I'm afraid that even his closest kin will have to be killed. In that case, Goddess Ya might have been resisting Son of God Suju, right? Wang Kai, who was walking in the distance, heard their words and couldn't help but be curious. Since the Son of God and the Goddess were going to become Tao companions, then why would Son of God Suju say something to help him obtain the Goddess? Could it really be because this guy cultivates the Tao of slaughter? Or is there another reason? It can't be that he's not doing anything, right? Wang Kai rubbed his nose and said with a smile. Shua. At the same time, in the void, there were two figures standing side by side. It was the red-clothed Son of God Suju and the Holy Son of Yaoguang. Junior brother Yaoguang, who is this person? Do you know him? Son of God Suju stared at Wang Kai's back as he said with an uncertain expression. On the side, the Holy Son of Yaoguang gently shook his head and said indifferently, I also want to know who he is. Unfortunately, when I went to the Holy Maiden Peak, he was already there, but what? Suju's eyes narrowed. The Holy Son of Yaoguang turned around and looked in the direction of the Spirit Maiden Peak. He said indifferently, but at that time, there was also the Spirit Maiden Guan Qingqing. She even stopped me from ascending the Holy Maiden Peak. Presumably, he brought her here. Spirit Maiden Peak. Spirit Maiden Guan Qingqing. Hearing this, Suju sneered and immediately turned around, heading straight for the Spirit Maiden Peak. Suju was still extremely fearful of Wang Kai, whose cultivation was unfathomable. He also cared a lot about him. Chapter 646. Goddess Peak. Wang Kai stopped in front of the mountain gate and looked at the desolate surroundings. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows slightly. This place was different from Spirit Maiden Peak and Holy Maiden Peak. There weren't many disciples guarding here. Wang Kai, who originally thought that he could still act tough, was speechless for a moment. Just now, those disciples of the Saintess Peak all said that there are many disciples guarding the Goddess Peak. Why don't I see any of them? Could it be that they knew that Ben Shao was coming and were so scared that they scattered like birds and beasts? Wang Kai frowned and shook his head helplessly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Hearing this, Cat Lord was about to go crazy. He thought that since there was no one here, Wang Kai would stop bragging. But who would have thought that even if there was no one here, he would still continue bragging? That must be the case. Blame it on Ben Shao for being too strong and too awesome. People say that the heavens can't cover one's eyes. In Ben Shao's eyes, the heavens are just the roof of his house. If he doesn't want it, can't he change it at any time? Wang Kai shrugged and smiled indifferently. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Kid, Cat Lord doesn't care if you want to brag. But do you really want to go to the Goddess Peak and die? Don't you think it's strange that there are no disciples guarding here? Cat Lord said angrily through telepathy. Hearing this, Wang Kai curled his lips in disdain. He gently fanned himself and walked up the mountain path leisurely. He smiled faintly and said, Didn't Ben Shao just say that? Those disciples who were supposed to be guarding here are not here because they were scared by Ben Shao. Scared witless. That's enough to describe it. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Courting death. He was really courting death. Hearing this, Lord Cat's breath caught in his throat. He didn't even have the mood to continue persuading him. He was completely blown away. From the Fan Prefecture to the Immortal Martial Domain, from the Immortal Martial Domain to the 8 Desolaces, and now, even to the Heaven Prefecture. Cat Grandpa really wanted to know how Wang Kai was so good at bragging. He actually had so many tricks up his sleeves? Who are you? I remember you said that as long as I'm alive, no one is allowed to step foot on Goddess Peak. Are you here to seek death? Whoosh! When Wang Kai was halfway up the mountain, he was stopped in his tracks by a voice filled with cold intent. Raising his head, he saw a young man sitting on top of a large rock. This young man had a thin and weak figure. He wore a black robe that was extremely sloppy. In particular, there was a scar that resembled a centipede on his face that should have been handsome. When one looked at it, one could not help but frown. Brother Scar? Are you an underworld member of the Sky-Reaching Church? TSK, your attire is not bad. Who doesn't have a few scars on their body? However, a mere scar is not enough to scare Ben Shao. I'm not afraid to tell you that there are more than 10,000 scars on Ben Shao's body. Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and smiled proudly. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Brother Scar? Underworld? More than 10,000 scars? Hearing these words, the young man with the scar was stunned. He looked at Wang Kai in a daze. For a moment, he didn't know what to say. Brat, you're still bragging. Didn't you hear what he said? Those disciples who were supposed to guard Goddess Peak have already been chased away by this brat. With such strength. Whoosh! Before Lord Cat could finish his words, Wang Kai shrugged his shoulders and interrupted him. He looked at the young man indifferently and smiled mockingly. Young man, you did well. When you knew that Ben Shao was coming, you purposely chased away those disciples who were like flies. Here, this is your reward. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience points and 100 bragging points. Patter! Wang Kai raised his hand and a stone appeared in his palm. He then threw it at the young man with the scar. F***ck brat, you're really courting death. Lord Cat was furious when he saw this. However, he could not stop Wang Kai. No matter how strong a person was, he would not be able to face Wang Kai. Patter! Suddenly, before the stone could even reach the young man, it exploded into powder in midair. You're very interesting. I don't want to kill you. The scar you're talking about was left behind when I was chased by my enemies in the early years. I was only able to keep my life because Goddess Xia saved my life. I didn't remove the scar not because I'm pretending to be cruel, but because I want to keep it as a reminder that I haven't gotten my revenge. You want to go up the Goddess Peak? Without Goddess Xia's permission, I won't let you in. As soon as the scarred youth finished speaking, his figure instantly appeared in front of Wang Kai. He extended his hand and signaled for Wang Kai to descend the mountain. Another heavenly monarch. Wang Kai frowned when he saw this. He never thought that the person in front of him was also a disciple of the heavenly monarch realm. He had thought that no matter how strong he was, he would only be at the peak of the heavenly king's stage. After all, the godchild Suju was only a heavenly monarch. If there was someone stronger than him, how could he be a godchild? What are you? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows and asked with a surprised expression. What son? Such words immediately puzzled the scarred youth. He looked at Wang Kai in confusion and shook his head. I don't know what you're talking about. Spirit child, holy son, godchild, they are all heavenly monarch realm experts. Ben Shao is very strange. What are you? Do you need Ben Shao to tell you such a simple question? For someone as talented as Ben Shao, who had shocked both ancient and modern times, there were even more difficult questions to think about. How can I be in the mood to always answer such simple questions? Wang Kai waved his hand in disdain. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. I am only a core disciple and have stepped into the heavenly monarch realm for less than a day. Although I have surpassed the other core disciples, I am still far from the holy son of Spirit Child. You can leave the mountain. The scarred youth came to a realization and replied softly. Wang Kai didn't know how to continue when he heard Lin Dong's patient reply and the fact that Lin Dong didn't attack him. As the saying goes, one does not hit a smiling person. Since the other party was so modest, he could not go overboard, right? What is your name? Ben Shao admires people like you who are strong but modest. How about we be friends? Wang Kai squinted his eyes and smiled with a sincere expression. Be friends? The scarred youth was stunned. He looked at Wang Kai blankly and moved his lip. In the end, he rejected. No need, you can leave the mountain. Brother Scar, no matter what, Ben Shao has to go to the Goddess Peak today. You treat him with respect, so Ben Shao will naturally return the favor. However, if you insist on stopping me, then we can only fight. Wang Kai's face suddenly turned serious and stared at the scarred youth with a desire to fight. It could be said that after coming to Tianzhou, this person was the first person who could make Wang Kai want to fight to his heart's content. In an instant, his desire to fight was boiling. Chapter 647. A battle? Hearing this, the scarred youth's eyes narrowed. He took a few steps back and said indifferently, I can't see through your realm. If you are weaker than me, you can tell me your true realm. I will suppress my cultivation to the same level as you. If you are stronger than me, swish. Stronger than you, so what? Wang Kai narrowed her eyes and asked with a surprised expression. Naturally, you have to suppress it to the same level as me. The scarred youth said confidently. Ugh. Since Ben Shao is stronger than you, why do you have to suppress your realm and fight with you? Wouldn't it be better to just kill you? Wang Kai frowned and said speechlessly. This scarred youth was quite interesting. He was a weirdo. You probably won't. I have a good eye for people. Perhaps your cultivation is not as strong as mine. Otherwise, with the words you said at the beginning, you would have already made a move. The scarred youth could not help but grin. Good eye for people? The corner of Wang Kai's mouth twitched when she heard this. She could not help but narrow her eyes and look at the scarred youth. She shook her head and sighed. Looks like Ben Shao needs to teach you a lesson. What do you mean? The scarred youth asked in a daze. Suddenly, Wang Kai gently waved his fan, and the pressure that belonged to the Heavenly King stage immediately swept out. However, her realm was only at the first stage of the Heavenly King stage. Your cultivation is indeed not as high as mine. Looks like my guess is right. The scarred youth grinned. Following that, the scarred youth's aura was also suppressed to the first stage of the Heavenly King stage. He looked at Wang Kai with the same fighting spirit as he took out a large blade and said in a deep voice, Let's fight! Wait, before the battle, Ben Shao wants to explain something first. Actually, Ben Shao's true cultivation is not only at the Heavenly King stage. It's hundreds of realms stronger than the Heavenly Monarch stage. You have to be careful. Wang Kai shrugged and said with a calm smile. Congratulations to host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Congratulations to host for successfully breaking through to the third stage of the Heavenly King stage. Whoosh. Haha, I like people like you who can brag so much. In an instant, the scarred young man laughed out loud. He immediately brandished his broadsword, leaned forward, and chopped down. Ben Shao also admires simple-minded people like you. Wang Kai remained motionless as he waited for the saber to strike down. Then, he casually raised his hand and said with a faint smile, Myriad cuts. Patter! Patter! Suddenly, the blade in the young man's hand was shattered into several pieces by Wang Kai's hand. This scene caused the young man to be stunned. Universal cleave. Whoosh! Just as the scarred young man regained his senses and retreated, he saw that Wang Kai's speed was dozens of times faster than his. Your realm, Patter! Bang, however, before the young man could finish his sentence, his body had already been sliced into pieces by Wang Kai. The pieces were wriggling on the ground. You are a third-level heavenly king, not a first-level heavenly king. The scarred young man's head swayed on the ground as he stared at Wang Kai with a face full of grief and indignation. He never would have thought that he would actually trick him. Ben Shao already said before the fight that Ben Shao's true realm is not as simple as the Heavenly King stage. If you don't believe me, then blame me? Also, in the future, don't think that you're a good judge of character. Ben Shao admires you, so I let you suffer a little and learn from your mistakes. Wang Kai shrugged and said with a casual smile. Swish. As soon as he finished speaking, Wang Kai stepped forward and integrated the scarred young man's body together. Maintain this posture for 2 hours and you will be able to recover. Don't move, otherwise you will only be able to live with your head separated from your body for the rest of your life. Wang Kai warned with a serious expression. Hearing this, the scarred young man was even angrier. He couldn't help but curse. Bullshit, you were clearly bragging before. If you had said earlier that you were a third-level heavenly king, how could I have fought with you as a first-level heavenly king? However, Wang Kai waved his hand and ignored him. He leisurely climbed up the goddess peak. My name is Chu Yunquang. We will fight again in 2 hours. Of course, I hope you don't die in the hands of Goddess Xia. The scarred young man's shout came from behind, causing Wang Kai to frown. Die in the hands of Goddess Xia? Could she kill someone? Goddess Peak. Similar to the Holy Maiden Peak, there was a pavilion located at the peak of the mountain. The surrounding clouds were swirling and moving, giving off a feeling of a fairyland. Of course, if one looked into the distance, they would definitely have another thought. It was because the place where the sky-reaching school was located was too barren and dilapidated. In the wilderness. Here, is the water ready? Come and add it. When Wang Kai stepped into the pavilion, he heard a celestial voice in his ears. He looked in the direction of the voice and saw a room that was not closed. Steam was coming out of the room from time to time. The sound of water splashing could be heard continuously. Is she taking a bath? King frowned and his heart began to pound. He hurriedly scanned his surroundings. After confirming that there was no one around, he swallowed a mouthful of saliva and tiptoed toward the room with the open door. Here, come and add the water. Why are you so slow? When he heard the bewitching celestial voice once again, Wang Kai's breathing immediately turned heavy. His footsteps also quickened and became heavier. Here? Why are you breathing so heavily? Your footsteps aren't steady either. Have you forgotten the cultivation method I've taught you before? Ugh! Wang Kai held his breath when he heard the voice. His heart almost stopped beating, but it soon returned to normal. Since the goddess did not discover him, it proved that she did not use her spirit to spy on him. She was just relying on her hearing. From this, it could be seen how confident the goddess was. She was so confident that she did not believe that anyone would dare to enter her pavilion. Little did she know that this was indeed the case. Even if it was a divine son or an elder, they would have to inform the goddess peak in advance. In the entire sky-reaching school, there was only one person who dared to enter the goddess peak directly and enter the pavilion. Wang Kai was probably the only one who could do that. Here, come down after you add the water. The 9 reincarnation blood lotus is very useful for our cultivation. When Wang Kai entered the room, he saw a large wooden bucket in the center. Inside the wooden bucket was the back of a woman with wet black hair. Droplets of water dripped from her smooth and white back. As she raised her slender hand to stir the water, the outline of her chest could be seen. It was frightening. It was also frighteningly large. It was even more frighteningly white. Skin whiter than snow and a peerless figure. I wonder how she looks like. Wang Kai licked his lips and thought to himself as he felt his throat go dry. While thinking, Wang Kai had already walked behind the woman. Chapter 648. Why are you still standing there like an idiot? Why don't you add some water and join us? Such a good medicinal effect, you can't waste it. Xiaoxian Yin laughed softly. As she spoke, she raised her slender arm and played with the water splashes. Thump, 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 thump. After hearing this, Wang Kai's heart began to race. Why is your heart beating so fast? The first point of the cultivation method I taught you before was to focus on your state of mind. Have you forgotten? Whoosh, following Xia Xinyan's scolding, she slowly stood up and turned around. However, before she could finish her sentence, she was stunned by the face of the man in front of her. Ugh! For a moment, Wang Kai was also stunned on the spot, his eyes involuntarily fixed on her body. How dare you not wear your clothes in broad daylight, patter? The awkward scene was broken in an instant. Before Xia Xinyan could react, Wang Kai reached out his arm and pointed at her. Bastard! Who are you? Buzz. Rumble. Whoosh! At that instant, Xia Xinyan's figure stiffened, as she collected her thoughts. Her gorgeous face was filled with an icy murderous intent. Waves of terrifying Tao intent shattered the wooden bucket into pieces, causing the water to splatter everywhere. Even the entire pagoda was trembling. Wang Kai was caught off guard, as if he had received a heavy blow. His figure was sent flying out of the pagoda like a meteor, and slammed onto the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Too beautiful, simply too beautiful. That face, those eyes, that little mouth, that little nose, everything was exquisite to the point of perfection. Cough, cough. Wang Kai stood up with his hand on his chest, wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth, as he clicked his tongue in admiration. He was completely stunned by Goddess Xia Xinyan's appearance and figure. In other words, the only person who could be compared to her was Jing Xian. Furthermore, Xia Xinyan had an extra otherworldly aura compared to Jing Xian. This was definitely due to her cultivation. Yeah. Who are you? Why are you? Goddess. Thump. Walala. Suddenly, a delicate voice sounded out, causing Wang Kai's eyebrows to twitch. He turned around to take a look, only to see a girl in the prime of her youth in the distance. She was so frightened that she spilled the bucket of water in her hand onto the ground. In the end, he ran into the attic in a panic. Tsk, this servant girl called He-er is also quite pretty. It's a pity that I didn't see what was below. Big stupid cat, did you see it? Wang Kai raised his eyebrows slightly and said with a playful smile. However, Cat Lord did not respond. It could be said that ever since they entered Goddess Peak, Cat Lord had sealed off his divine sense to prevent Wang Kai from bragging. Even if Wang Kai wanted to communicate with him, it was impossible. Whoosh! Patter! Above the pavilion, the doors and windows suddenly exploded. An otherworldly figure stood in the air. At this moment, her beautiful face was filled with ice-cold, killing intent. She coldly looked down at Wang Kai. Her jade-like hands were clenched so tightly that they turned white. Her body had been seen by a strange man. Xia Xinyan could not tolerate this. She had cultivated for more than 100 years and had never been treated like this. Die, Buzz! Xia Xinyan angrily shouted and waved her jade-like hands, intending to kill Wang Kai. However, before she could use her Tao will, Wang Kai hurriedly waved her hands and shouted, Sister, don't be angry. I'm a girl. We're sisters, why should a girl make things difficult for another girl? Whoosh! As soon as these words came out, Xia Xinyan's beautiful eyes went blank. Her arms stiffened in the air as she stared blankly at Wang Kai. For a moment she was unable to react. I'm really a girl. I just look like a guy. Wang Kai frowned and looked at her with a confused expression. His expression was so sincere that it was terrifying. Xia Xinyan came back to her senses and stared at Wang Kai's throat. However, she did not find any Adam's apple. She could not help but release her divine sense to investigate. In the end, she did not find that Wang Kai was a man. Who are you? Why did you barge into the Goddess Peak? Xia Xinyan lowered her arm as her figure floated down from the sky. She stood in front of Wang Kai, her eyes filled with suspicion as she stared at him. Wang Kai secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He had just used his cultivation to retract his Adam's apple. That was how he got out of trouble. Fortunately, his aura and characteristics were hidden by the system. Otherwise, she would have definitely seen through his aura. My name is Wang Gaijing. Because I was born like a man and my voice is exactly the same as a man's, I was sent to the Sky Reaching School to cultivate. My father gave me a man's name so that I could have a foothold in the Sky Reaching School, Wang Kai said with a sorrowful expression. As he spoke, he wiped his face with his hands, just like a girl. If Cat Lord did not seal his senses, he would definitely be scared out of his wits when he saw Wang Kai's appearance. He could never imagine that the arrogant Wang Kai would pretend to be a girl. He could never imagine that the goddess of the Sky Reaching School could not see through his disguise. Little did he know that Wang Kai, who had the system, could not see through his disguise no matter how strong he was. Unless he took off his pants to take a look. However, even if Xia Xinyan was suspicious, she would not do such a thing. Wang Gaijing, you. Why did you barge into the goddess peak? Xia Xinyan narrowed her eyes and asked coldly. Hearing this, Wang Kai's eyes darkened. He sighed and said, I admire you, sister. You're the goddess of the transcending heaven cult. You're very powerful. With your protection, who dares to bully me? I hope you can let me stay. In the future, I can take care of you. Oh sure. Then let's take a bath together. Xia Xinyan furrowed her eyebrows as she coldly glanced at Wang Kai. With a flip of her jade-like hand, she imprisoned Wang Kai. With a move of her body, she stepped into the loft. Here, go and prepare. Yes, goddess. Here bowed and stole a glance at Wang Kai. Then, she hurried to prepare. This, goddess sister, I just said that my body is the same as a man's, swoosh. Before Wang Kai could finish his words, he felt his body stiffen. He was suppressed by Xia Xinyan's will, and could not move at all. He could not even speak. Haha, it's okay. I will help you become a real woman. Xia Xinyan's eyes flashed with a cold light. Her voice was full of sarcasm. Swoosh. Seeing this, Wang Kai knew that the goddess did not completely trust him from the beginning. The way he pretended to trust her was completely toying with her. Becoming a real woman? Wouldn't that mean he had to be castrated? Damn, that scene. Wang Kai almost fainted when he thought about it. Was this goddess so terrifying? Chapter 649. Goddess, it's ready. Do you want to bathe now? Soon, the voice of the maid, here, came from outside the room. Along with it came the sound of water being poured into the tub. F*ck, she can't be serious, right? At this moment, Wang Kai couldn't say anything. He could only stare at Xia Xinyan with grief and indignation. He never would have thought that the goddess would play such a prank on others. Yes, here, come in and take off his clothes. Throw him into the tub and soak him with the 10,000-year poisonous toad and Sky E9 flower snake. Xia Xinyan said indifferently. At the same time, she looked at Wang Kai with her beautiful eyes, which were filled with joy. As far as she was concerned, killing Wang Kai so easily was simply letting him off too easily. 10,000-year poisonous toad, Sky E9 flower snake. Although he didn't know what kind of poison she was talking about, it was enough to make one's hair stand on end. Quickly remove the Tao intent tendons and bones in my body. Wang Kai hurriedly used his mind to communicate with the system. Host, to break the Tao intent of a 4th grade Heavenly Monarch expert with your current cultivation, it will cost you 1,000 bragging points. 1,000 points, swoosh. As the maidservant here blushed, her eyes secretly sizing up Wang Kai's body. She used her might to sweep Wang Kai up. Wang Kai was extremely anxious. he hurriedly used his mind to say, "Quickly break, splash." Walala, however, it was still too late. Before Wang Kai could finish his words, his body had already been thrown into the tub. His body couldn't move and could only be submerged in the water. At this moment, Wang Kai finally understood what the 10,000-year poisonous toad and sky E9 flower snake were. It was a yellow toad with a human head, which meant that the white dot was a toad. Its body was extremely smooth and shimmering with golden light. However, its body was secreting wisps of golden air. It must be extremely poisonous. At the side, there was a small snake covered with patterns. It curled its body in the water and opened its mouth to bite Wang Kai's shoulder. Hiss hiss, croak croak, rumble, crash. In an instant, the wooden barrel was blasted apart. The 10,000-year poison toad and the sky E9 flower snake appeared to have met their natural enemy as they hurriedly fled. When he looked at the heavenly E9 snake again, his teeth were shattered and his mouth was blasted open. The 10,000-year venom toad was in an even more miserable state. It didn't attack Wang Kai directly, yet it was poisoned by its own poison instead, and it hadn't even taken a few steps before its belly was turned up and it was completely devoid of aura. This, the maidservant, Hier, widened her beautiful eyes when she saw this. She was extremely shocked as she looked at this scene. Even the blush on her pretty face instantly disappeared from fright. At this moment, she appeared extremely pale. "Break it quickly!" Whoosh! Wang Kai's expression changed when he saw Xia Xinyan's figure flash out. He was afraid that this woman would come up with some other vicious plan. He hurriedly used his mind to communicate with the system. Congratulations to the host for successfully breaking the Tao suppression. 1,000 bragging points have been consumed. Buzz. When the restriction on Wang Kai's body disappeared, he immediately somersaulted and stood up. Looking at Xia Xinyan, who had floated out, he immediately put his hands on his waist and spat out in a stern voice, "Bitch, even if you want to see Benchao's unparalleled handsome body, just say so. Why do you need to use such a vicious move? Are you satisfied now? Look, come, Benchao will shake for you. Let you see more clearly." Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Whoosh! As his voice faded, Wang Kai placed his hands on his waist and began to twist, causing little Wang Kai to sway in circles. Patter! Such a scene instantly caused Xia Xinyan's face to turn red. Her gaze was extremely flustered as she turned her body away, and she hurriedly turned her back. The maid, Hier, was so frightened that she cried out in alarm. She covered her face with her jade-like hands and squatted down in shame. Whether it was Xia Xinyan or Hier, they dared to swear that they had never met such a shameless and despicable man. He had no sense of shame at all. Little did they know that in Wang Kai's eyes, his life was about to be king lost. Why would he still have any sense of shame? Seeing that the goddess had turned her back and did not dare to make a move on him, Wang Kai immediately put up his guard and said sternly, "CKU, I told you to look and you don't dare to look. The more you don't want to look, the more Ben Shao wants you to look." Whoosh! As he spoke, Wang Kai's body had already moved and appeared directly in front of Xia Xinyan. "Bastard, you lecher! Die!" Xia Xinyan saw this and angrily rebuked. She closed her eyes and raised her jade-like hands to slap Wang Kai. Absolute Rebound Divine Shield. Congratulations to the host for successfully obtaining the Absolute Rebound Divine Shield. 500 bragging points have been consumed. Buzz. Crack. Bang. What? Suddenly, the divine shield shattered and Xia Xinyan's body retreated a few steps. A mouthful of blood even spurted out from the corner of her mouth. As for Wang Kai, he was still unscathed. "Even with my full strength, I still can't hurt Benshao. Compared to that bullsh *T pretentious divine son, you should be much weaker." Wang Kai squinted his eyes and said with a mocking smile, Cough, cough. Xia Xinyan clutched her chest and steadied herself. After glancing coldly at Wang Kai, she immediately stepped into the air and left. Only now did Xia Xinyan realize that Wang Kai had been toying with her all this time. Even if he was caught, it was all an act. With such a cultivation, how could she have been captured by him? You want to run? Do you think you can run? If you dare to run, Ben Shao will kill this maid. Wang Kai sneered when he saw this. His body suddenly moved and he directly captured the maid, who was squatting on the ground. Whoosh! Such a scene immediately caused Xia Xinyan's delicate body to stiffen. She stopped in midair and pursed her red lips. In the end, she floated away without saying a word. Although her back was facing Wang Kai, it was not difficult to imagine how bad her mood was at the moment. Divine daughter, don't worry about me. I'm just a servant. Hurry up. What? Slap. However, before He could finish her words, Wang Kai slapped her buttocks. She immediately cried out in pain and her face turned red as she began to sob. As the divine daughter's maid, although she was a servant, her status in the sky-reaching sect was higher than many of the core disciples. It could be said that she had never been treated like this before. Don't hurt Xia Xinyan shouted angrily. Whoosh! Hearing this, Wang Kai immediately raised his eyebrows. He immediately stepped behind Xia Xinyan and said with a mocking smile, "Since I won't hurt her, I'll hurt you." Slap, slap. Slap, slap, slap. You deserve to die. Then, under Wang Kai's continuous slaps, Xia Xinyan's buttocks began to tremble. The anger in her heart became more and more intense. Ben Shao has died before. Unfortunately, Ben Shao's physique is too awesome. In the 9 heavens and 10 earths in the 3000 universe, he is the only one. Well, you just saw that the toad and the poisonous snake could not do anything to Ben Shao. You can imagine in your mind that if you and Ben Shao had a powerful physique. Can you resist? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and said with a playful smile. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Chapter 650. You whoosh. Hearing those words, Xia Xinyan's eyes turned even colder. She turned around in anger and saw Wang Kai with his hands on his waist and hips swaying. Hurry up and put on your clothes. Xia Xinyan hurriedly turned around, her face flushed red as she scolded angrily. Until now, she still could not understand why a genius with such a high cultivation level would be so shameless. Wang Kai's level of the younger generation must be high above others and care a lot about his face. But this was not the case. Little did they know that in Wang Kai's opinion, if a gentleman could eat, not be oppressed by power, and not have his life controlled by others, he would rather be a gentleman. Unfortunately, this was the way of the world. Kind people are bullied, kind horses are ridden. Why do you have to put it on? Didn't you want to see it? Now that you've stripped Ben Shao naked, you don't want to see it anymore? Do you think you're the king? Do you think others have to do whatever you say? Wang Kai sneered with a disdainful expression. He immediately raised his hand and slapped down. Slap. Following a crisp sound, Xia Xinyan's body trembled from the slap. Her face was bloodshot and her red lips were tightly pursed. If looks could kill, the endless murderous intent in Xia Xinyan's eyes was enough to kill Wang Kai tens of thousands of times. Unfortunately, Xia Xinyan did not dare to run away or resist. She did not even dare to turn around. You what? Little girl, you dare to use a shameless man and a snake to mess with Ben Shao. If I don't teach you a lesson today, how can Ben Shao be the ruler of Tianzhou and the role model of all the young men and women? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and said with a mocking smile. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Whoosh. As these words were spoken, Xia Xinyan's lovely body suddenly stiffened. Her face was filled with panic. For a moment, she was unable to make up her mind. How exactly was he going to deal with her? Wang Gaijing, don't go too far. This is the Goddess Peak. If you dare to disrespect me, there will be no place for you in the 6th region. Xia Xianyan said angrily. There was no place for him in the 6th domain. Wang Kai curled his lips in disdain. He raised his hand and pressed it on her buttock. Then, he gave it a hard pinch and sneered. The sky-reaching school has become a lowly force that everyone can bully in the 6th region. You still think that Benshao can't survive in the 6th region? Even if the sky-reaching school has the ability, Benshao won't be in the 6th region. Xia Xinyan could feel her buttocks changing shape in Wang Kai's hands. The numb feeling was so stimulating that she wanted to go crazy. However, she didn't know how to escape. She bit her red lips until they bled. Encountering such a fearless person like Wang Kai, whose cultivation was unfathomable, was really difficult to deal with. What? Aren't you awesome? How dare you threaten Benshao? TSK, Benshao's cultivation is superb. He can go anywhere in the 6th region. But what about the sky-reaching school? F*CK, they are already being bullied by the major forces in the 6th region. If you leave the 6th region, you will be played by countless men. Do you think Benshao is right? Wang Kai shrugged and said with a playful smile. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Hearing this, Xia Xianyan's eyes darkened. Her delicate body trembled slightly, as if she had accepted her fate. She bit her red lips, causing them to turn red. She could only endure Wang Kai's frivolous actions. Indeed, Wang Kai was right. No matter how strong and powerful the sky-reaching school was in the past, it was all in the past now. They could barely survive in the 6th region. If they were outside the 6th region, Xia Xinyan didn't want to imagine the consequences. Goodbye, goddess. You must avenge me. Suddenly, the maid, He-er, took out a dagger and slashed it at her neck as she spoke. He-er, you can't. Bastard. Benshao hasn't asked you to die yet. How dare you die? Clank. Bang. Wah! Suddenly, under Wang Kai's palm, the dagger in He-er's hand was directly shattered into pieces. Even her body was sent flying and fell to the ground, continuously vomiting blood. In this moment of desperation, Wang Kai had been caught off guard, and his true cultivation base had been completely exposed. 3rd grade Heavenly King Realm. Whoosh! Xia Xianyan glanced at Wang Kai in surprise. Then, with a tap of her foot, she appeared in front of He-er. You are only a Heavenly King Realm cultivator. Then, the thing that blocked me just now must be a Heavenly King Realm cultivator. Also, your Heavenly King Realm cultivator has just used your Heavenly King Realm cultivator and was shattered by me. So, do you have any other Heavenly King Realm cultivators to protect themselves? Xia Xinyan squinted her beautiful eyes and sneered coldly. Whoosh! Hearing this, Wang Kai's heart skipped a beat. He glared at He-er fiercely. If he didn't save her in a moment of desperation, he wouldn't have exposed his strength. In the end, he was too careless. He didn't expect He-er to be so loyal to Xia Xinyan that she would sacrifice herself to save her master. Wang Kai didn't have any scruples about teaching Xia Xinyan a lesson or even flirting with her. However, Wang Kai admitted that it was difficult for him to casually kill an innocent maidservant who was loyal to her master and had no enmity with him. Alas, it seems that this young master is too kind. I've been practicing for so long, but I don't even want to kill an ant. My mother told me that such a kind person would not be able to survive in the cultivation world. At first, I didn't believe it, but today, it has been verified. Mother, you are right. Wang Kai shook his head and sighed again and again. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Whoosh! Hearing these words, Xia Xinyan immediately laughed coldly. She immediately lifted her delicate arm and pointed at the dead sky E9 flower snake and the 10,000-year poison toad's corpse in the distance. If an ant doesn't even want to hurt an ant, then what are they? Wang Gaijing, no matter what your goal is, you will die today, Xia Xinyan said coldly. Whoosh! Buzz! As soon as she finished speaking, Xia Xinyan's figure flashed. Using all of her cultivation, she appeared in front of Wang Kai in an instant. Then, a palm filled with terrifying Tao will slam down. Little girl, if Ben Shao can't teach you a lesson, how can I continue to brag? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and sneered in his heart. With a flick of his finger, a drop of essence blood merged into the ground. Then, he allowed the palm to land on him. Bang! Plop! As Wang Kai's body exploded, Xia Xinyan's face was cold and indifferent. She said coldly, "You are the first person to see my body and also the last." However, at the same time, under the ground, Wang Kai's blood essence burrowed into the pavilion like an earthworm. In a room that looked like a warehouse, Wang Kai's figure gradually appeared from the essence blood. You are still too inexperienced to play with Ben Shao. Next, it should be Ben Shao's turn to play with you, right? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and stretched his neck. He grinned with an evil expression. Chapter 651. Big Stupid Cat, come out quickly! Wang Kai frowned and said impatiently. However, there was still no response from Lord Cat. In order to prevent Wang Kai from bragging, Lord Cat was determined to seal himself off this time. Seeing this scene, Wang Kai was speechless. He immediately pinched his hair and released his cultivation. Suddenly, there was a force that repelled his palm. Kid, why are you looking for Lord Cat? Did you succeed? Or are you looking for Lord Cat to save your life? Lord Cat's exasperated voice came out instantly. Hearing this, Wang Kai curled his lips in disdain and said with a faint smile, "What do you know? Ben Shao is just playing games with the goddess now. Also, quickly cast an illusion to change Ben Shao into. Well, that's it." Buzz. Immediately, Wang Kai turned his hand and condensed the power of heaven. The appearance of the maid, here, appeared in front of him. Lord Cat was puzzled. He thought for a while and said, "You want to transform into a woman's appearance. What do you want to do? Is she the goddess?" "No, she's just a maid of the goddess. I'll tell you the details later." "Quickly transform." "Well, you must be able to hide it from the Lord of Heaven. Can you do it?" Wang Kai raised his eyebrows slightly and asked in a tone of disbelief. Hearing such words, Cat Lord was infuriated. Since he didn't believe it, why did he ask him for help? However, in order to find out the truth of the sky reaching Church's fall, Lord Cat didn't care. "It's not difficult. As long as you don't leave the Goddess Peak, you won't be discovered by the other experts of the sky reaching Church. However, even if I use it carefully, I can only deceive the Heaven Monarch Realm experts for 16 hours, Cat said after thinking for a while. 16 hours. Enough. Hearing this, Wang Kai immediately raised his eyebrows. His eyes were filled with ridicule as he smiled and said, "Hurry up and use it. 16 hours is enough for Ben Shao to have a good time with her." "Humph, I don't care what you want to do, as long as you can complete what I want to know." Cat Lord coldly snorted. Immediately, a wisp of white light penetrated Wang Kai's hair. In an instant it spread and enveloped his entire body. Whoosh! By the time the white light dissipated, Wang Kai had turned back into a woman. She was exactly the same as that maid, here. Regardless of whether it was his aura, bone structure, or even his demeanor, he was simply like a person. He couldn't see any flaws at all. With a flip of his hand, Wang Kai condensed a mirror with his heavenly energy and spun it a few times. After sizing it up, he couldn't help but exclaim in admiration, Big dumb cat, you really do have some skills. However, compared to Ben Shao, you're still a little lacking. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You've received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. Seeing Wang Kai lift his skirt to look at himself in the mirror and hearing the woman's voice, Cat Lord couldn't help but snort coldly and seal off his perception. Clatter! Suddenly, before Wang Kai could react, the door of the warehouse was gently pushed open. Seeing this, Wang Kai's heart jumped. Just as he was wondering if Xia Xinyan had discovered him, he was stunned by the woman in front of him. Maid, You bang! When he saw the woman who looked exactly like her, she was momentarily stunned. When she finally regained her senses, before she could say anything, Wang Kai covered her mouth. Clatter, as the wooden door of the warehouse was gently closed by Wang Kai. He fainted in Wang Kai's arms due to her injuries. There was even a trace of blood at the corner of her mouth. When Wang Kai saw this, he couldn't help but smack his lips and say speechlessly, "Who asked you to seek death for no reason? You're lucky that Ben Shao's slap didn't kill you. Your injuries are too serious. Let me take care of the medicine." Before Wang Kai could put down, Goddess Xia Xinyan's voice came from outside. His tone was filled with reproach and concern. From this, it could be seen that Goddess Xia Xinyan took good care of her. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stopped running after being threatened by him in the beginning. "I'm sorry. You can sleep for now. When you wake up, your injuries will have healed." Wang Kai shrugged and flicked a drop of essence blood into Heer's body. Then, he used the power of heaven to seal her spirit. Clatter! After finishing all of this, Wang Kai gently placed her on top of a box. He turned around and closed the wooden door of the warehouse, welcoming Goddess Xia Xinyan. "Spiritual medicine? You didn't find it, right? Don't worry. Go back and rest. I'll go get it," Xia Xinyan said with a gentle smile. She raised her soft hand and touched Wang Kai's face. This situation caused Wang Kai to have goosebumps all over his body. It was really disgusting. Even though the softness of her hand was good, he was now in the form of a woman. The way she touched him was no different from a couple. "This bitch can't be a ***, it can't be. She's just showing concern." Wang Kai comforted himself in his heart. "Goddess, I've used up all the spiritual medicine. My injuries are not serious. I'll recover after some rest, ***. Wang Kai imitated Heer and bowed. In the end, he pretended to be injured and coughed heavily. Seeing this, Goddess Xia didn't have time to think. She immediately held Wang Kai in her arms and said softly, "It's okay. I'll use the power of heaven to heal your injuries." Buzz. Swoosh. As her words fell, before Wang Kai could react, his body was carried by Xia Xian and floated into a room. Looking at the simple room in front of him, he couldn't see the habits of a woman at all. This situation made Wang Kai even more confused. Is this Xia Xinyan really that? Remember, don't have any distracting thoughts. Take off your clothes and close your eyes to rest. As Wang Kai was supported by Xia Xinyan to the bed, a gentle voice entered his ears. F****K. Take off my clothes? Take them off again? This is an illusion. I'm still naked. Wang Kai was speechless. He had no choice but to do as he was told. However, just as he put his hands on his belt, a rustling sound came from behind him. This situation caused Wang Kai's gaze to harden. His throat gurgled as he involuntarily turned around. The scene he saw almost caused blood to spurt out from his nose. Wasn't Goddess Xia Xinyan also taking off her clothes at this moment? Moreover, she had taken off her undergarment. That undergarment was obviously a picture of a pair of mandarin ducks. The 2 points at the top and the snow-white side of her breasts were enough to make one's blood boil. Chapter 652. F***ck, this be *tch. Isn't she forcing Ben Shao to commit a crime? How despicable! How can a gentleman like Ben Shao be alone in a room with a woman? Wang Kai thought viciously in his heart. However, his gaze was fixed on her, unable to move away for a while. Congratulations to the host for successfully bragging. You have received 100,000 experience and 100 bragging points. As the saying goes, see no evil, see no evil. However, he was unable to move his gaze away, which made him feel like he was going crazy. What are you looking at? Why aren't you turning around and taking off your clothes so that I can heal you? Xia Xianyan frowned slightly and glared at Wang Kai with a hint of reproach. Xia Xianyan felt uneasy under Wang Kai's gaze. It was a strange feeling, but she couldn't quite put her finger on it. However, it was probably because he was too heavily injured. Thinking of this, Xia Xianyan didn't pay much attention to it. Seeing this, Wang Kai couldn't help but praise in his heart. He thought to himself, the big stupid cat is really something. Now that they were looking at each other at such a close distance, she didn't even notice any flaws. Goddess, why is your place red? Is it that bastard Wang Kai who did this to you? When Wang Kai saw her, he immediately reached out and hugged her in his arms. Hiss, that strange feeling made Wang Kai suck in a breath of cold air. Patter. Xia Xinyan's eyebrows furrowed even tighter. She raised her jade-like hand and slapped Wang Kai's hand to the side. She then put on her clothes, got off the bed, and took a few steps back. Here, do you still remember what I said to you when you entered the Goddess Peak? Whoosh. Xia Xianyan walked to the wall and took down a long sword that was hanging on the wall. She pulled the long sword out of its scabbard and gently stroked it with her slender fingers. It sounded like a casual sentence, but it caused Wang Kai to be a little dumbfounded. Not only did he put on his clothes, he also got out of bed, took out his sword, and asked about what happened in the past. What's the relationship between me and here? How would I know? He must have discovered something, right? Of course I remember. When I first came to Goddess Peak, Goddess you... What? Cough cough. Bang. Wang Kai pretended to be sorrowful as he recounted his memories. In the end, he directly coughed out a mouthful of blood, closed his eyes, and fainted on the bed. Since he couldn't answer, he would just continue to act tough. With the big stupid cat's illusion, Xia Xinyan would not be able to see anything. As long as he did not reveal any fatal flaws, there was nothing to worry about. Sure enough, seeing Wang Kai fall onto the bed, Xia Xinyan's eyes flashed with anxiety. She hurriedly threw her sword on the table and quickly sat cross-legged on the bed. She placed her hand on Wang Kai's chest. It really was here. Just now Was she really worried about my injury there? That's why she did that? Xia Xinyan frowned. Her eyes were filled with guilt and self-blame. She immediately took off her clothes and channeled the power of the heavens into Wang Kai's body. This was not enough. Not only did Xia Xinyan take off her own clothes, but she also took off a few pieces of Wang Kai's clothes. Such a situation immediately caused Wang Kai to be speechless. Why did she have to take off her clothes to heal me? Wasn't she forcing me to make a mistake? Everyone said that the goddess was as pure as ice and as pure as jade. But when the goddess went crazy, she was indeed evil. What would Xia Xinyan think if she were to know about this? Most likely, Wang Kai would be executed on the spot, right? Wang Kai, who was half squinting and secretly peeking, felt his heart beat faster. His throat was so dry that he could not hold it in. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I can't take it anymore. I'm not a man if I take it any longer. Whoosh. With such a thought, Wang Kai immediately opened his eyes. After swallowing a mouthful of saliva, he placed his demonic palm on her without giving her any chance to explain. Here you. Xia Xinyan was dumbfounded. She even forgot to resist. She could not figure out what was wrong with her today. Why was she acting so strange? Goddess, don't you think it's a bit too much for you to seduce me? Cough cough, seduce your servant? Wang Kai narrowed his eyes and said with a mocking smile. At this moment, Wang Kai's blood was boiling. Seduce you? Have you forgotten that the secret techniques we practice, whether it's healing or passing on skills, all require. What are you? Bang. Suddenly, without waiting for Xia Xin Yen to finish speaking, Wang Kai activated the system, instantly dispelling the illusion, and began his evil deed. If he could endure such a situation, then wouldn't Wang Kai be sick in the head? However, when Wang Kai's true appearance was revealed, Xia Xinyan had already gone crazy. You bastard! Is there any way to temporarily imprison her? Wang Kai, who was in the middle of a battle, did not let it get to his head. He was afraid that Xia Xinyan would suddenly attack and he would definitely die again. Although he could be reborn after death, it was best to avoid that feeling. Host, forcibly imprison a heavenly monarch expert. With your current cultivation, it will cost you 2,000 bragging points. 2,000 bragging points. That's a lot. Wang Kai's expression froze when he heard the notification. His waist involuntarily came to a halt as he stared at Xia Xinyan, whose beautiful eyes were already glaring at him, filled with murderous intent, causing his heart to violently beat. 2,000 it is. Hurry up and imprison her. If you don't bleed when you're courting a girl, is it still courting a girl? Buzz. Following Wang Kai's command, a golden light floated out from Wang Kai's body and directly enveloped Xia Xinyan's entire body, immobilizing her. She could not even blink her eyes. Congratulations to host for successfully imprisoning a heavenly monarch expert. This imprisonment will last for 2 hours. Total cost, 2,000 bragging points. 2 hours, forget it. The corners of Wang Kai's mouth slightly twitched. Looking at that cold and beautiful face, he could not help but ruthlessly laugh. Little girl, you killed Ben Shao once and harmed Ben Shao once. Now, it's time for Ben Shao to regain his face, right? When the 2 hours were almost up, Wang Kai hurriedly put on his clothes. Looking at the still immobile Xia Xinyan on the bed, he calmly said, You killed me once and Ben Shao regained his face once. Fair and square, no one owes the other anything. Logically speaking, Ben Shao suffered the most. After all, not everyone can be reborn after death. Goodbye. Pata. As his words fell, Wang Kai quickly walked out of the room. After waving his hand to close the door, he immediately stepped into the air and madly rushed down the goddess peak. In truth, if it was possible, Wang Kai really wanted to stay and continue, cough cough. However, if he stayed any longer, who knew what kind of revenge Xia Xinyan would take? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.